Okay, I think I'm live. Kind of bright. Let me see if I can get some light here to balance it off. Okay, good enough. That looks good. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go through the questions in order. So you can go ahead and type them in, and I will try to answer them in order, and I will stay on for as long as there are questions or until I pass out. Let's begin. I think it's 2 o'clock now. Yeah. Let's see. Thanks for the session. Do you think CFI Q Bank is the most representative? Do they try to examine whether we know the fundamentals of each subject or the details and exemptions? When you say the most representative, I don't know what you mean. Representative of what the exam would be like, or representative of what you should know? If you mean what the exam should be like, I don't know that it would. QBank questions are of a different type than exam questions. Exam questions are meant to test you. That's it. Question bank questions are really meant to help you learn and not so much to test you. Well, yeah, they're testing you to see if you know the answer, and you could feel good about yourself if you know the answer, but it's really part of the learning process. So the word representative is ambiguous to me. Every question is written by a question writer. They're not perfect questions. Some questions are written for no other reason than they're easy to write. Some questions are not true to the learning objective. So, for example, in quant level 1, you're introduced to skewness and kurtosis, but the keywords are describe, not calculate. However, for a question writer who's getting paid per question, it's easy to write a question to calculate by giving you the variables. It's not true to the learning objective, but that's just the end result of having different people write questions. I don't really know. I haven't gone through the CFAI Q Bank to know whether or not they hold true to the learning objective. But for every question that you get that should tell you what learning objective it's testing, pay attention to the keywords. If there's no calculate in the keywords, it is extremely doubtful that a question on the exam would have you calculate something. So that's about the best I can answer on that. I'm not able to focus on my preparation being a working candidate. I am unable to do required study for May level 1 on a daily basis, as I have to prepare for my master's too. Please help in making a strategy. Well, this is like having 3 girlfriends, right? I mean, if you have 2 girlfriends, you might be able to pull that off. But if you have 3, you're just going to ruin all 3. You're going to get caught. You're trying to do a whole bunch of things all at the same time. You have a job, you're trying to do your master's, and you're trying to do level 1. When you spread yourself thin, you end up doing none of them well. So I would say that you need to focus on what's more important. I'd say your master's and your job are probably the most important ones. CFAI can wait. That if you risk doing your job and your master's poorly because you're also trying to do CFA at the time and doing that poorly, now you're doing 3 things poorly rather than 2 things well. The more you take on, it's not as if the marginal thing you take on will be done a little bit less, but the first 2 will be done well. You'll end up doing all 3 things poorly. So that's a lot to do all at one time. And being young, you can't forget that there still is the social aspect of your life that you can't ignore at this point, because building social capital is an important thing. And you're probably going to get more of that with your work and your master's as opposed to doing the self-study for CFA. That if you had to let one thing go, not so much let it go, but push it until you're done your master's thesis, I would say that would be the CFA. I don't think you can do 3 things well. You're already saying that you're having trouble doing it already. You're already acknowledging what I would have already thought if somebody said, "I'm trying to do these three big things at the same time. It's not working out." Well, that's why. What's your advice on how to better understand the fixed income and derivative section? So derivatives is math. Derivatives is nothing more than time value of money. So if you conceive of derivative pricing and derivative valuation as nothing more than time value of money, it's super, super easy. So you have a price today and you have a forward price, right? And let's say a period of time goes by and you have a price today. What is the value of that contract? Well, you could take the price today and move it to the future, take the difference between the two and bring it back to today, or you can take the price today and move the futures price back to today and compare the two. You're just moving money around on a timeline. If you think of derivatives as nothing more than time value of money, super easy. Nothing is challenging in derivatives because it all is just time value of money. But rather than teach it as just time value of money, you have all of these formulas which look intimidating. But if you had to express the time value of money as a formula, you'd come up with the same formulas anyways from starting from time value of money. So think about it that way. For fixed income, the math is really not difficult in fixed income. It's pretty straightforward. We know that duration is nothing more than the slope of a line. It's rise over run. If you understand elasticity in economics, that's what duration is. It's just an elasticity at a point in time. With any numbers course, the way to understand it better is you just do it. Math can't be memorized. Math is muscle memory. You actually have to do it again and again and again to the point where you get it. Sometimes it's helpful to go beyond what CFAI gives you and to get a fixed income or derivatives textbook and try the problem sets in the textbook. They're going to be much more difficult and much more open-ended. But if you learn at that level, stepping down to the CFAI level is easy because CFAI is not, for anyone who's ever taken a fixed income course, even at the undergrad level, the fixed income math that you get into is way more than what you'll get in level one fixed income, even level two. So what level 1 and 2 fixed income give you in terms of math is pretty low ball in that respect. So reaching higher and learning it there means when you step back at this level, level 1 is what you're talking about here. It's not that complicated at all. For derivatives, there is a playlist on my channel that follows the John Hull textbook, which is probably the best textbook for derivatives because it is simple in the sense that he doesn't try to make it more complex than it needs to be. It's pretty simple and straightforward. So you can always look in other places and you don't have to rely on what CFAI gives you if you find it too challenging. Or if you're new to it, it may seem a lot all at one time because it does move very quickly. It doesn't lead into it by 2, 3, 4 chapters. Usually in an undergrad textbook for fixed income, you'd be in chapter 6 or chapter 7 before you start really getting into measures of duration and convexity. But here it has to go a lot quicker. So it may seem like the pace is faster, but overall, compared to what an undergrad fixed income course would be, level 1 is easy in that respect. So maybe getting a textbook and going through the first 3 or 4 chapters will build that really slow foundation that textbooks tend to do, with a lot more examples given to you. And textbooks tend to introduce a concept, a bunch of examples. Then they make it just a little bit harder, a bunch of examples. And they walk you, basically scaffold you towards the final big problem. Whereas with level 1 fixed income, when you get to duration, it tends to just jump right in there without a lot of background for you. Let's see. I have a question regarding QBank. I saw a YouTube video where you explained that it's not so useful for the learning process. Do you think that a lot of QBank is not useful. Well, I think you might be confused. I don't believe I ever said that the QBank was not useful for learning. Um, QBank questions should be written in a formative way. Formative meaning it is part of the learning process. What I think you might have heard is that relying on QBanks for all of your learning is not going to be effective. So saying that all you have to do is hit the QBanks and just do a lot of them, and then each question you get to in the answer, you'll learn, what you needed to learn for that question, and the more you do, the more you'll learn, and off you go. It's not that useful for learning because you may come across a question and get it wrong, read the answer, go, okay, I get it now. All I have to do is go back to that question and just change the scenario just a little bit. And you won't recognize it as being the same question anymore because you haven't learned the foundations for it. You've only learned that question. So you have a whole bunch of situational learning experiences, but no generalizability across them unless you have the insight to start to be able to see how these things are connected and finish sentences and paragraphs on your own and fill in the dots on your own. If not, it is not an effective sole source learning process. It's not great for discovery. The reading and the reading videos is where you would discover new concepts and new processes. The QBank is where you then reinforce that learning, where you develop it a little bit more. But to start at a QBank and ignore everything else, I think that was the message of that particular video, was that thinking that a QBank approach to learning is sufficient is incorrect. I am planning to sit for level 1 in November. I'm planning to study 650 plus hours. Is there too much studying? Is there such a thing as too much studying? I lost that question. Let me scroll back up. I just lost it. Oh, there it is. Or is this okay as I'm a non-native English speaker? Is there such a thing as too much studying? No, I don't think so. I don't think there is. The danger in putting in that much time comes in, let's say that you learn something imperfectly, but you spend a lot of time repeating the imperfectness of what you've learned. It will be hard to unlearn that after you've made the mistakes in your mind. So you may know something, you may think you know something, but you're missing one piece of the puzzle. There's something you're missing, but you're not aware that you're missing that piece. So you keep ingraining again and again and again what you currently know, which is incorrect. The more you do that, the harder it becomes to break you of that, because you first have to unlearn what you think you know and then relearn it the correct way. And the more you repeat it to yourself, the more you become convinced that no, it's right, because it's just become part of you. So the danger in overstudying is if you have the wrong picture in your head of what reality is, you risk owning that picture in your head, and then changing it later will become so much more difficult. I don't believe in number of hours. It takes what it takes. It takes what it takes to get to the point where you go, aha, I got it. Where there's, no gaps in your mind saying, well, hang on now, I can't seem to make these two things fit. I get this, I get this, I get this, but every time I introduce this variable, something messes up. I'm missing something. It takes what it takes. So to say that, I'm going to study 200 hours for a test, well, that's to predetermine how your brain is going to fit everything in and work. It might not take 650 hours. It might take more. And the more you practice a faulty process, the more that faulty process becomes much, much more difficult to fix later on. So I wouldn't focus on a number of hours. Forget that. I would focus on a process so that you may say to yourself, this is the process I'm going to put myself through for every reading. And this is what I'm going to do every day. I'm going to do 45 minutes at this time. I'm going to do 45 minutes at that time. And I'm going to do that every day. And if you work the process, everything will take care of itself. So don't focus on 650 hours and then logging all your hours that you go through, because some of those hours may not be quality hours. Focus on the process. The process is the goal. Everything else will take care of itself. Everything else is an outcome. CFAI question bank versus yours, which should be my priority? I don't know that I would say that one should be a priority over another. So it gives you variety. So some of each, because you have different question writers writing questions now, and I may find that something is not worth asking because it's a little outside of the learning objective, where another author might say, well, no, if I ask this, it helps you understand this other stuff over here. They may have a different viewpoint on the question being asked. So I don't know that I'd prioritize one over the other on that. I wouldn't have a clear answer on that. Additionally, wondering how much weight should be given to the number of practice questions versus scores on mock exams. What metrics should I be using to accurately gauge my understanding and odds of performing well? The metric that you should be using to gauge your understanding and odds of performing well is if you can explain it to somebody else simply. If you can explain it to somebody else simply, you're done. That's the test of understanding. But if you're trying to explain it to somebody who's never heard it before, and you're having difficulty explaining it to them because your explanation is so difficult and complex, then you don't quite understand it yet. As Einstein said, is if you can't explain something simply, it means you don't understand it yet. So rather than going through a whole bunch because questions are imperfect, and questions are written by an author who may understand what it is in their head that they're asking you, but the words that they're using make the question ambiguous all of a sudden. And suddenly, through no fault of your own or the author's fault, you get the question wrong simply because in the author's mind, those words had a certain picture in his head of what he was saying or she was saying, but you didn't read it the same way, especially when English isn't your first language. So questions are an imperfect way to assess whether you truly understand something, unless you have perfect questions, which are, you're not going to find them everywhere. Just because there's a question out there doesn't make it a perfect question. But your ability to explain it to somebody who's never heard it and to explain it simply such that they say, oh, okay, I get that. That means you understand it as well. Let's see. Given that there's about 86 days until February level 1 exam, where should we be in our studies right now? Also, how would you best suggest consolidating the material in last month? Where should you be in your studies? 86 days? Well, you should be well on your way. I don't want to give any kind of quantity of where you should be, but let's say that you should be more than 30%, probably less than 70%, somewhere in there. And it really depends on the time that you have available, the time you're giving it. Some people have more time per day. It's level 1. Many people who take level 1 are not employed full time. So they have a lot more time. Plus, many of them are still students. So they're still in that study mode where they don't have to get back into study mode. They're still in that mode. I would say that you're well on the road, but you still have a ways to go. As far as consolidating at the end, that's what the last review, the 28 days of review are for. You'll do mock exams, then that will indicate what sections that will probably be, have high yield for you to review. Why real exams sharply differ from all test resources? Okay, well, let's unpack that sentence. Sharply differs. I don't know that it sharply differs. CFAI does not allow us to see the questions on any exam. So we can't see how they write the questions. We can't see how close to the learning objective that they hold. We can't see, the mix of quantitative versus conceptual questions. So we don't know. We just don't know what they look like. We can just give our best guess as to, the types of questions that are more likely to show up, how they're likely to be structured. And, this is why places like, ours and other places will provide you with 4 or 5 mock exams, hoping that with all the questions they ask, they're going to touch on every topic they can. When you say they sharply differ, you may mean in terms of the types of questions, but I don't think you mean in terms of what they're asking the question about. So that's all we can do is just get as close as possible. I had a question. I received a CFA level 1 university scholarship, but I still can't register to be an official candidate. Can I still purchase your material? You can't register to be a candidate, but you received a scholarship. I don't know how that's possible, but yeah, I guess so. I imagine you could. I don't see why you couldn't purchase the material. Do you think I can pass level 1 if I study 3 hours every day for 4 months? I don't know the answer to that. That's like me asking you, do you think that I could, ski a double black diamond hill if I practice every day for 2 hours for 3 months? I mean, you have no idea of my athletic ability. You have no idea of how when I am practicing, at what intensity am I practicing at? Am I, what kind of practice am I doing? If you're just going to do the bunny hill for 2 hours a day for 3 months and then run to a double black diamond, film it for me, please. I want to see that. But you're not going to make it, right? So I can't answer that question because I know nothing about you. I know nothing about your ability. I know nothing about the intensity at which you put in time. I know so little. But I would say that if they're quality hours and you are more than capable, 3 hours a day for 120 days, 360 hours, it's not improbable. It's not as if I would say, oh, come on. Now, if you said, if I studied 20 hours, could I pass? I'd say, not unless you're bloody brilliant, where you don't really have to learn. You just can recognize it as soon as you read it, and you have an eidetic memory, which means you can recall everything you've ever seen and read. But 360 hours is in the realm of real probability, and you're the only variable of which I do not know anything about. And there is an interaction between the individual and the time. That it's not just a given that if I put in that time, regardless of what type of individual I am, will I pass? That's not a given because it interacts with who you are, right? How do you come up with the colored board with your own handwriting? At first, you have considered using slides. No, I don't like slides. I don't like slides at all. I prefer the handwriting. I prefer the colored board because you have to look and you have to read it. If I give you a slide, what I find, especially in classes in the past, is you can read the entire slide while I'm talking. And you're not hearing the words I'm saying. You've read the words on the slide and you've tuned me out because you can't read a sentence and listen to another person talk and understand both at the same time. Try it. Try listening to the news and reading a newspaper at the same time. You can't read that sentence and hear the other person at the same time. The more challenging the font is to read, the more attention you have to pay to it. That's the point. If I make it super easy to read, because our mind is a great pattern matching supercomputer, we can read words without reading the word. We can look at a word. We don't have to read a word, and our mind automatically knows what that word is. So if they're typed out words, you can look at a slide and you can read it really fast because you'd recognize the words. but it's difficult to read my handwriting very fast. You actually have to read it. It slows you down a bit. So I don't think I would ever go to the slides, only because I don't have the freedom to draw the things I want to draw. And color does highlight something. That when you close your eyes and you're remembering a slide that I've done, sometimes the color helps you remember something that you saw. So being that it has so much more value other than words on a screen, I don't think I would ever go to slides. I haven't taken any classes on accounting. Your videos and see if I made in order to understand. I need to start with accounting textbook. No, I don't think you need to start with an accounting textbook. Accounting is fairly straightforward in that you have debits and credits and they have to balance. If you have a $100 debit entry, you must have a $100 credit entry. That's it. Knowing what's a debit and what's a credit can be the challenging part, because it's sort of backwards, right? On the accounting statement, debits are good, credits are bad, except if it's equity. On the income statement, credits are good because it's revenue, debits are expenses, they're bad. So it's just a little bit backwards there, but you should be able to pick it up fairly quickly. FRA is not trying to make you an accountant. Much like if you take a course in university on English literature, it's not trying to make you an author. It's trying to make you a good consumer of literature. So FRA is really just trying to make you a good consumer of financial reports. How do I read this bloody thing? That's all it's doing, is helping you figure out how to read a financial statement. The accountant produces the financial statements. Now, understanding how they're produced makes it easier to read, but it's not necessary to be able to produce financial statements to read them, much like it's not necessary to be able to write a novel to appreciate good literature. So I don't know that you'd need an accounting course, but if you feel that you do, go to Google and type in introduction to financial accounting, and you'll find a playlist. And I'm sure after you get through maybe a couple hours of that playlist, you'll go, okay, I get it. I got enough. I would go through it to the point where you get debits and credits and be done with it. Once it starts with the transactions, I don't think that you need to understand the transactions and the journal entries that are necessary. Let's see. What practice score should we target in CFAI question bank? Well, better than the average. Unless you're using it as part of a learning tool, then I don't know that I would pay attention to my score at all. I would pay attention to, after you do 15 questions, ask yourself, do you know more now than when you started? And if the answer is yes, then those 15 questions were clearly worth something because it made you better, right? Is it possible to cover ethics, quant, FRA, econ in 90 days along with the revision of the whole? It depends on who you are. I know nothing about you. Is it possible? Sure. Is it possible to do it in 30 days? Sure. It depends on who you are. Depends on how easy you learn, how willing you are to put in the time, especially when it gets frustrating, how much you're willing to sacrifice of other aspects of your life to get it done. Many of the questions that are asked along the lines of, is this enough time? Is that enough time? Do you think I can do it? Do you think I can get this done or that done? Is less about what you have to do and far more about who's doing it. And that is you. And without knowing anything about you, these are almost impossible questions to answer. All I can do is say, for an average person of average ability, it is in the realm of possibility. And of course, I'm talking about an average person with average, ability. There's a distribution. It's within the range of probability. That's for an average. If you're, better than average, sure. If you're lower than average, then, that distribution would require a lot more time for you. How can we choose to do all questions per LOS in the question banks? I can only choose 25 questions, but would love to have more options to choose more. So our question bank is such that once you see the question once, it won't show it to you again until you're done all the questions, and then it starts showing it to you again. So if there are 100 questions and you generate a quiz of 25, and then you generate another quiz of 25, there'll be 25 different questions. And then if you generate another 25, if there's 75 questions in that reading, you'll get another 25. Only after you've seen every single one does it start to repeat the questions. There is a limit to how much is shown, only because our numbers on our site are so large in terms of number of subscribers that the function call to the database to get 100 questions and 100 answers, if everyone was doing that, would slow it down incredibly. So sometimes we choose things like this that are meant to slow you down or slow down what could be done, such that you get them faster, if you get that. All answers look like each other. I'm not sure what that means. All answers look like each other. Some say QBank questions from external providers are easier than CFA Institute questions. Do you agree? I wouldn't know unless I actually saw some of the other questions from other providers. I know the ones that I've written are not easier. I've written most of them at level 3, probably 60% at level 2, but maybe only 30% at level 1. And that's just a function of time. It's just I've never really had a lot of time to get that done. But in the derivative section, I believe those are all mine. In FRA, I think 3 or 4 of the readings are mine. So what else? Currencies, I think, were mine. I think not almost all. We used a lot of quant from other sources as well. Hard to tell. I don't really write too many questions anymore. I just focus on level 3 for question writing. Thanks for I'm a level 1 student. Many of us would like you to take classes with a video of yourself along with notes. Well, here's the problem with doing that. Is I'm a distraction on the screen. If I put myself on the screen, then there's less room on the screen for other things. I don't want you looking at me. There's no point in looking at me. So when I started doing them, I made them full screen and everything off the screen. The other thing is my tablet is right down there, so that I'm not looking at the screen when I'm doing anything. Right now, I'm looking at the screen because the questions that I'm reading are on the screen, so you see me. But if I were using my tablet, let me show you what you would see. You would see this the whole time because I'd be looking straight down. You'd be seeing the top of my head pretty much the whole time, which would force me to have to look up all the time just to look down to write something. And if I were drawing something, this is what you would see. Then I'd have to look up and then look down. It wouldn't be effective at all. And it would be, I think, more ridiculous than anything else, because all you'd see is the top of my head. Also, I don't sit when I do these. I don't sit at all. I have a kneeling chair, and I kneel so that my head would come up to about here. So I'd have to keep looking over the top of this thing just to see you guys. So wouldn't work out very well. Would your study materials be enough, or should I be focusing on CFAI materials too? Well, we follow the CFAI readings LOS by LOS. We don't deviate. We don't write our own readings. We see no point in writing something that's already been written for you. You already have enough to do. You already have enough to read. Why should we write even more stuff for you to read? I want you reading their content because the exam is based on what they write, not what anybody else writes. Yes, there are other providers who write books, but the exams are not written on those books. The exams are written on their books only, and you get all of the readings in the learning ecosystem. There is no need to go outside of that for anything else. Just to say abandon those readings. I would never do that, much as no professor would say, don't read the textbook. The textbook is part of the process, and there are times where a careful reading of the textbook brings a whole bunch more to life. So I would say don't abandon the readings that are there. You may not want to start with the readings because, well, maybe they're dry. Maybe you don't learn well by reading something. Maybe you want to see it first, and then when you read it, you go, okay, that's exactly what I saw. I feel good now. But I certainly would read it. Where are we? How much time is sufficient for revision or review after completing the course? I think 4 weeks is sufficient. I think 2 weeks is not enough time. I think 6 weeks is way too much time. 4 seems to be about the right period of time that you could probably get it done in about 3 weeks, but you got that extra week. I think 2 is just too short for, well, what, 50 some readings? I am nearly done with my February 23 prep. However, I feel I've forgotten a lot of what I've learned. Perfectly natural. What can I do to ensure I remember almost everything come exam day? So there's learning and then there's remembering. Learning takes some time. Remembering is easy. So it's just review. And lots of research shows that if you spend 5 to 10 minutes reviewing a particular reading once a week, you won't forget it. It'll stay top of mind. So what I would suggest is, on a Sunday, let's say you're going to dedicate that week to nothing but review. You're just going to cycle through review videos, and you're going to, but make sure you're listening. You'll cycle through the review videos. You'll have your review notes in front of you. Say, okay, yeah, I get this. Okay, I remember that. And if you do that every week, just set aside one day a week for review. When you get to the last 28 days, you'll find that you probably don't even need those 28 days anymore. But forgetting is natural. It's just a natural part of learning. Remembering is far faster than learning. A question regarding difficulties of your quiz bank compared to CFA end of chapter questions actual exam. I scored 82% on EOC and 77 on yours. Is that a good score? Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah. Let's see. Apologies if this is a bad question, but are your lectures and notes to be studied in addition to CFA material? Is your content enough standalone? The idea behind what I do, or the way I did things and the way I started initially, it started really as a research project. I was testing decay rates of people who took free courses online, how many people actually made it to the end. Because it is a big problem with a lot of these, MOOCs, these open courses, these, large classes that everyone can take through places like Coursera, et cetera, is that 2% of the people finish. 10,000 will start, but 175 will finish. Where'd the rest go? So when I did it, I didn't want it to be light like a lot of these online courses are. They're light. It's kind of like Finance 101, the light version, not the really heavy version. It's not the version you'd get if you were sitting in a university classroom. So I did these as if I were teaching it in a university class. So it is meant to not so much be just a supplement, but I'm not going to say it's a replacement. For some readings, you will find that after you go through the video and then you go to the reading to read it, you'll get 4 or 5 pages in and you go, I don't need to read this. I get all this because I cover everything, not just, I don't just look for the big themes or the 3 or 4 things out of this reading that you need to know. There are some providers who take that approach, saying, look, as long as you know these 3, 4 big themes in each reading, you'll be okay. Well, that's teaching to a test. I'm not teaching to a test. I'm teaching to a career. My thinking is you're not taking this just to pass a test. You're taking this to be successful in a career. If you are not successful in your career, then all of this is a waste of time and money. So I'm teaching to a career, not to a level one test. And listen, at all times, you are preparing for a level three exam because you cannot get the charter until you pass level three and get your work experience. Can't help you with the work experience, but if you don't get past, you may squeak past level one with some memorization, maybe squeak past level two, but you won't get past level three because you'll have all these holes in your knowledge. So that's why I cover everything, just so that when you get to level three, you don't have Swiss cheese knowledge. And I call it Swiss cheese knowledge because if you've ever seen a piece of Swiss cheese, it has holes in it. Well, if you take one piece of Swiss cheese and then you layer it with another piece with holes in different places and another one with holes in different places, pretty soon you have this Swiss cheese knowledge where you read something, you go, oh, I think I know this, but you got all these holes at level one and level two where, well, you don't really know it the way you should know it at level three, right? So would I say that I'm in addition to? Yeah, I don't think that I would abandon the readings at all. If you are pressed for time, yeah, then you got to give something up. But if you have the luxury of time, I don't know that I would. If I would rob myself of the richness of a good, careful reading of that particular reading, just so that I know it better than the person sitting next to me. Because finance, the whole industry is one really competitive industry. It's not a matter of this entitlement where I have this designation, I'll get a job, and I'll be okay. I don't have to worry what anybody else around me is doing. Finance is competitive, super competitive. What do you think about the concept of cryptocurrencies, and should we include? I don't think anything about it. I think crypto is seeing exactly what it's all about right now. It seemed to me that crypto was only useful for criminals, and now we're seeing that the actual companies that were funded were just as criminal, which reinforces my belief that it's all just for criminals. What did Neil Kashkari tweet out yesterday? He said that this is, let me open this up because I wrote down the quote. He said the entire concept of crypto is nonsense. It's for greater fools. What greater fools mean is there's something called the greater fool theory, which says that the value of something is only dependent upon you finding a greater fool to sell it to. And that's crypto. That's crypto. It really has no widespread use function whatsoever. It's not a currency. It's not being used as a currency. It's not scarce because there's an unlimited number of limited coins. It was a pyramid scheme from the beginning. It is a pyramid scheme still. It's a senseless, useless thing. No, I don't think you should put it in your portfolio at all. And I've never touched crypto. I couldn't understand why anybody would touch crypto, but there it is, right? How many days should I put for one chapter? I don't have finance background. My exam is in August. Again, this idea of quantity. Some chapters will be very quick for you. Others may not. It takes what it takes. I don't know that I would put a number on the amount of time per reading. I would have a plan for what my day will look like, and I would work the plan, and what I get done is what I get done. That's the way I would do it. And you don't need to have a finance background, by the way. Level one is very introductory. It is a lot of declarative knowledge. By declarative, I mean it's just a bunch of facts. It's just the way it's a description of a whole bunch of asset classes and a whole bunch of research methods. There's nothing to discuss. It's not as if there are trade-offs to make. It's really, really introductory and declarative knowledge. What else we got? Can you please tell me the best way to practice QBank from our site and learn it? Well, I don't know if to say what's the best way is suggesting that there's a plethora of ways to do it where one is the best. Generate a quiz, read the question, and answer it. What you get wrong, figure out why you got it wrong. What you got right, make sure you got right for the right reasons. Other than that, I don't know that there's a best way to do it other than just to do it. Just do it. Now, there are some questions in CFA QBank that are open and others based on Excel. Are we using both within the exam? You are not expected to use Excel in the exam. No. Please give me some preparation strategy for the next 90 days. These kind of questions, they're so big and open that this presupposes that I already know what you're doing, that I know what you've done, that I know where you are. I know how much time you have. There's so many more questions that would have to go with that. I mean, I could give you 2 or 3 tips, and on your side, you could be saying, yeah, I already did that. Other ones, please. I don't know. I will say this. You've all been in university. You've all taken classes. You've all had midterms, assignments, final exams. This is not new. Just because it's self-study, just because it's outside of a university, doesn't mean that it's any different. Learning is the same no matter where you do it. So whatever worked for you there, whatever method you used that you found the best, and I mean, after 2 years of university, if you're in your 3rd year and you have figured out what works for you, you're not paying attention. Whatever works for you the best, do that. That's all this is. It's the same thing. It's just instead of within a university course, it's outside, but it's exactly the same thing. So I don't know that, to give you a preparation strategy for the next 90 days would just think about, well, what if you were mid-semester in a course? I'm sure you can figure that one out and just do that. Lean into that. There's some question. Okay. I'm a bit confused at the quant section when it comes to the use of Excel formulas versus the use of statistics tables, which the CFAI will test me. From my understanding is there is no Excel. They won't be using any Excel at all. It is there because Excel is the tool. No one's really going to use a calculator or tables out there. Excel is the tool you're going to use. So may as well learn the functions such that it translates into something you can do in your job. However, it won't be tested. Neither will the R code or the Python code that they give you. That won't be tested either. At some point, will it be part of the CFAI? I don't know. It seems to me that it's a different skill set. It's, the CFAI is you're a financial analyst. The use of Excel, I don't know that it's incumbent upon them to teach Excel or teach R or teach Python. They can tell you Excel is what you're going to use. You might want to learn it. R and Python are going to be useful. You might want to learn it, but it's not part of learning finance, right? So I don't see them asking any questions like that on the exam. It's there for you. I want to build knowledge in finance, and I think using prep providers material doesn't help that much. Well, I'm not sure what you're asking here. You want to build knowledge in finance. You want to build the academic or the practical? If you're talking about the practical, yeah, probably not. I find that while CFAI has probably the best aggregation of knowledge that can be applied directly, it is not very good at its practical application or demonstrating the practical application of something. For that, you would need more of a practitioner approach, but that is what you're supposed to get out of that 2 years work experience that you need to get the charter. So they come along and they say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you a body of knowledge, academic knowledge that is as close to practice as we can get, and that's what we're going to give you. Then you're going to go out and you're going to get the real applied knowledge through your job. And if you bring those 2 things together, we'll give you these 3 letters. They can't give you the experience. No institute, no university, no anything can give you the experience in the real world. That's what the job is for. So I think it would be unfair to look to the prep providers to fill in that gap and give you the experience. It is, I think, useful if they can connect something to the real world. If they could say, this is how this applies, or this is how you'll see it, or here's an application in which you will see it, or if they can analyze the markets for you using the concepts that you are going to use at level 1, 2, and 3, and show you how it applies directly. So that for those who are not getting any experience, it's as close as you can get to experience by proxy, which is just listening to the experience of someone else. But I don't think the purpose of the content is to give you that experience. Now they are getting better with it in terms of the examples that they're using in the last few years. I've noticed that the examples are tending to get less manufactured and closer to practice, but I still think they got a long way to go to get to practice. But the applied series and the applied videos, I think you have some of those with your level 1 subscription. Plus the market outlooks I do every Sunday on YouTube should, when you're watching them, you should recognize some of the concepts from level 1. As you go through level 2, you'll recognize more in those videos. And then once you're finished level 3, you'll fully, you can watch one of those without saying, well, what does this mean? What does that mean? You should fully understand it. And it also, through those, gives you the source of all the information that I use, such that you yourself, as a retail investor, should be able to find all that information. I have a question. Knowing them, does it mean one knows the material well, as it highlights all the important parts of the book? It's reading the book and remembering all theory is different. Not really. I mean, I can give you a whole bunch of questions, and it's the I think the question outstanding would be, as you review the questions, have you remembered the answers, or do you actually know? And the way that I would test that is I would change every question just a little bit to see if you could still solve it by just changing the context, changing the orientation. If it's a derivative, change it from buyer to seller, change a few things on it to see if you could still recognize it. Or I may start from the answer and see if you can solve one of the variables that were required to get to the answer. If you can't, you may be able to go forwards through a problem, but can you go backwards? Can you start from the answer and a few little clues and figure out that you're missing one of the variables? If you can't do that, then all you're doing is remembering the question. You're not learning the knowledge necessary to answer the question. You're just remembering the question. Sitting on Monday for the exam, was doing well using Kaplan mocks, using your videos, 6 CFA mock, and was way below. Any advice here? No, not really. So you have one thing that was slightly off on everything else. I don't know that I would get too concerned about that. Somebody had to write that exam. And if it's a mock exam, it could be that the questions on that exam just never qualified for a real exam. I wouldn't read too much into that. What's the difference between chance of PV full and change of price with duration calculation? They have completely different formulas. I don't know what you're referring to. Don't know what you're referring to there. When you say chance of PV full, I think you mean change. What's the difference between change of PV full? In terms of what? Change of price with duration. I don't know what you mean by the first one. I'd have to guess and, not guess the answer, but guess what you're referring to such that I could answer that. I don't know what you mean Change of PV full. The change of price with duration is the change in the full price. Like when you use duration, you're of a bond, it is the percentage change in the full price of the bond. So there's my sort of dilemma is I don't know what you're referring to in the first sentence that is any different from a change with duration calculations because it is still the full price of the bond. Is it worth going for level 3 even if I have no work experience? Finishing up my master's, I'm wondering if I should go straight to level 3 or wait to get experience first. Well, there are two trade-offs there, right? Is that while you're still in this study mode, that you still have this momentum, maybe you want to get level 3 done. The other side of it is much of level 3 you would not appreciate unless you have experience. So it depends on what you're trying to get out of level 3, a pass or a good understanding of what's going on. You know, there are lots of universities that have MBA programs that don't allow direct entry, that you can't go from an undergrad to their master's program because without having some work experience behind you, they feel that you would miss much of the richness of the material, that it would be lost on you, and you wouldn't really get it. So you could see level 3 as sort of being the same thing. If that's your concern, is that coming to level 3 with some experience in one of the asset classes will bring level 3 to life a lot more, because level 3 will then begin to answer a lot of the questions you have developed on your job that you are still trying to learn the answer to. And level 3 could help you there. Learning a whole bunch of answers for questions you don't have is hard to, you would have a hard time remembering those answers later when you see the questions down the road, because you'll forget that you knew the answer or that you read the answer somewhere, because when you read it, it didn't resonate with you. So there's two ways to look at that. I keep scoring good on end of chapter questions. However, whenever I forget what I studied in a few days, just review and, take Sundays and you get up at 7 or 8 or whatever time you get up and spend the first 2 hours doing nothing but review. Have your tea, have your coffee, find a nice place to sit and just cycle through them. What happened to some pep talk videos before exam window? Do you not do them anymore? Yeah, I used to do them when life was simpler. I don't really do them anymore. Like maybe I should. It doesn't occur to me. When there was 2 exams a year, it was easy to keep track of what was going on. But when you have 4 of them a year, especially level 1 being done 4 times a year, it begins to feel repetitive. Like, didn't I just say this 90 days ago? Do I have to say the same thing over and over again? Or, is it good enough just to know that a video exists? Is there not just a generic message I could make that would apply to all level 1 exams all year long? So on my site, if you click on playlists, you'll find level 1, 2, and 3 playlists, and it will have those videos in there. And I think the reason I stopped doing them, or that I lost not the motivation, but the momentum behind them, is every time I sat down to do one, I kept thinking, but I already did this. I did this for the last one. I would be saying the exact same stuff all over again. Can I not just repost the same video? And I know it's lazy to do that, but at the same time, nothing has changed. I'd be saying the same thing. So they are available. Maybe I just need to re-upload them every so often. Advice on memorizing FRA concepts. I'm struggling with this topic the most. Well, level 1 and 2 FRA are done from the perspective of IFRS. It's all IFRS. And if US GAAP differs, they say so. So it's not like it's IFRS and GAAP. It's IFRS, and where GAAP differs, it says so. But if it doesn't say anything about it, IFRS and GAAP are the same thing. So I would learn it the way IFRS does it, and then I don't know that that helps very much. I don't know that I have an answer for that. I don't like the word memorizing, and I mean, there really only are 4 readings at level 1 in FRA that require some thinking. I think there's inventories, long-lived assets, liabilities, and taxes. The rest is pretty generic. The income statement, the balance sheet, the cash flow statement. It's fairly generic, and it's not standard specific. There's only those 4 readings that have particular standards associated with them. So it's just a matter of, leading into it and getting through them. We do have tutors available. So the tutors that we would have for level 1 FRA do have a CFA and a CPA. They're also accountants. And I don't know that you're going to get a cheaper tutoring price than what we have, way below market rates. So you might want to look into maybe an hour with somebody who's an accountant might help it out. Is 90 days enough? And what is the suggested strategy with 30 hours a week? I think I've answered those. Can you give me some advice when it comes to doing final review of all the topics before exam, and how would you do it? How many hours, and how do we learn it by heart? Yeah, so I'm going to say the same thing I said earlier. You've been in university. You've had final exams. You've done this. How many times have you prepared for an exam? Like, at least 15, 20, 25 times in the 2, 3, maybe even 4 years that you've been in university. If you've been there 4 years, then you're looking at 25, 30, 35 times you've done this very same thing. Well, what worked? Do that. There is no difference between this exam and a final exam for one of your courses. There is no difference between the two. In fact, this would probably be easier than a university exam. The only difference is, instead of at the end of a semester having 5 final exams, this is one exam that's the equivalent of all 5, but you cram for 5 exams, in a period of 2 weeks, right? You study for one, you write it, you go home, you start studying for the next. Sometimes you have 2 exams in the same day. That's a bitch, but you get it done. It's the same thing. There is no difference between them. So it's not as if this requires such a radical change of approach that, oh my God, this is so different. You're going to have to do it this way. And every now and then get up, spin around 3 times, eat a slice of bread, sit down. There is no magic here. There is nothing that is any different than any other time you prepared for an exam. It's the same thing. So I wouldn't, think about the last time you crammed for an exam or exam season, your final exams. I mean, they're semester long, right? It's not, some finals are from the midterm forward, but usually a final exam is cumulative. It's everything you've done. Same thing, exactly the same. Let's see. Okay, any advice on how? Okay, I already did that one, and I just lost all the questions. Let me scroll back up. Let's see if I can find it. There we go. Do you think certain sections of the exam are more instrumental to have a solid understanding of because it spills into other topics? Yeah, I think if you really understand quant, you can understand the math when you get to fixed income and derivatives is going to be easy. And be careful with quant. You're really going to need it at level 2. Some of the foundational stuff at level 1, you're going to need at level 2. And unless you really understand the distribution, and by that I mean the idea of what the log normal distribution and the normal distribution, there are some things at level 3 that it will require you to go back and remember everything. So quant, I think, is a foundation for a lot more than just level 1. But yeah, quant. FRA at level 1 doesn't really help that much with FRA at level 2, because level 2 is specialized topics in FRA that, if you don't quite understand income taxes at level 1, that's not going to hurt you at level 2. Is 90 days enough to cover? I already said that. How will you compare the caliber of candidates that use prep provider versus just using textbook? I don't know. If somebody's just using a textbook, I never see them. I never meet them. I never know them. I wouldn't know. So that's sort of one of those things where I just don't know the answer to. I passed level 1 in May, and I want to go over the curriculum again and consolidate my knowledge before registering for level 2. I did not purchase the whole package. Can I purchase the whole 2022? I don't know that you'd want to. When you buy your level 2 package, you can elect to add. Do we still add on the archive? I think we still have archives. I'm not really sure. Let me find out. Do we still have archives? Because you could elect to add on an archive. We might not have that anymore. Let me go to level 2, 2023. Let's take this one. And can I add anything else on? Let me go back. Mock exams, tutoring, counseling. Nope. Either you had level 1 with us and you have the archive, or you don't. I guess we changed that. Let me find you guys again. There we go. But if you go to our site and you select level 2 packages and you scroll down, right at the very bottom in orange printing, it will be how current level references previous level. If you click on that, you will get a list of how level 2 references the level 1 reading. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There are 17 readings at level 1 that are important or that help with level 2. Now let's go back here now. What are the long stick-like things inside the vase in the door behind you? They are they're meant to be reeds, look like reeds. That's all. They're dried out reeds with the big fan flower at the very top. It's supposed to look like a big leaf, and they're reed sticks. That's all they are. They're just dried out reeds. Don't know where they're from. What about the 2023 L1 package? I know they've added new readings, and I'd like to learn about that too. The readings added to 2023, there's geopolitics. Don't waste your time. It is a disappointing reading all the way around. You'll walk away knowing nothing more than when you started. It's almost of no value from a finance perspective. It is something you would cover in the first 10 minutes of an introduction to international politics class. It has nothing to do with asset classes or the effect on asset classes, which I think was a huge letdown. Corporate issuers was changed. Corporate finance changed to corporate issuers. I don't know that you're missing much there either. Overall, I don't know that there's anything new at level 1 that I would say, oh, you've just got to know this. I don't think you're missing much on that. Let's see. How to learn the basics for someone who can't even understand level 1 textbook videos. Get a tutor. Sometimes all you need is a couple hours just to get you the momentum. And once you see your way clear, you go, okay, I'm getting it now. So maybe you just need to get past some cognitive block that you have, and a tutor might be able to get you there. Can you tell us, when it comes to quants and calculation of TZ and those calculations, how we'll see if I test this since we only have 90 seconds per question? Either they'll give you a critical value, or they'll give you a section of a table that allows you to choose the critical value, or they'll give you a table with like a 90, 95, 99, percentile, which means you're 10, you're 5, and you're 1, and they'll give you some critical values, and then you just have to determine which one to use. What shall be strategy next 90 days? Already answered that. It's a good idea to start ethics a month before the exam. Yeah, I'd probably say that ethics is more of a memorization section, and so getting into short-term memory, I think, is, for me at least, I think that would be the best that I could get done. And short-term memory has a fast decay, so you're going to want to get that done. Anything you put in short-term memory, you want to put in as close to the event that you need it as possible. What else we got? How many percent should I ideally aim for when practicing the mocks? I don't know if there's anything that you should aim for. Whatever your PB is, your personal best, keep trying to beat your personal best. And as long as you're beating the group, or in with the group, or a little better than the group, that works. What can I work on while waiting for the results of level 1? Take one section from level 2. Level 2 is equities, the biggest section. Biggest in terms of the longest, not the hardest. Equities pretty straightforward. The math is adding and subtracting. I think you multiply once. I don't know if you even divide. But it's pretty straightforward. It's not, you wouldn't even call it math, you call it arithmetic. But it's long. So if you can knock equity out of the way before your results are out, you've taken the biggest section of level 2 off the table. Off topic, but what do you think of MOOCs as a business model? I've always thought that it is inefficient to make professors go through the campus and teach the same content over and over again. It is inefficient to make them teach the same thing over and over again. I do agree with that, to perform the same content every semester. MOOCs, unfortunately, having gone through quite a few of them years ago, I found that they were very light. Like, they just touched the surface of things, and I would have liked to have gone a lot deeper into things, but they didn't. MOOCs highlight the problem with free, because edX, Coursera, places like that, you could take this stuff for free. And when you can take it for free, lots of people sign up, very few people finish. So you have to have a price. You have to charge something, because if you don't, the cost of stopping is non-existent. There is no cost to failure. So if you want more success, you have to raise the cost of failure. And I think all too often today, we seem to be trying to lower the cost of failure. And when you lower the cost of failure, you lower the probability of success, because, well, it doesn't cost me much to fail now. I can just fail. I can just stop. There's no downside to stopping. I just drop the course and I'm done with it. So it's, I think that having some kind of digital library for a university makes a lot of sense. And then when you go to class, you could take one part of that class and you can go super deep in a discussion on it. And I think that's a lot better than sitting in a class with a whole bunch of slides and the professor talking over the slides on something the professor may or may not have firsthand knowledge with, other than through a textbook. How respected is simply passing level 1 in the industry? Does it hold any weight? I don't think so. I don't think it's enough. What it will do is this: if you have CFA experience or CFA on your resume somewhere, then eyes will go to your experience. Whereas if you don't have that and you don't have experience, you're not even going to make it into the pile. But if you do have any CFA fingerprints on your resume, even if you don't have experience, you'll get the eyes on your resume just a little bit longer. It's always experience first. Always, always, always. That's the first section that's checked. Always. Unless they are looking for entry-level people, then it comes down to what educational qualifications you have, and maybe where you interned. But it's experience trumps everything, hands down. So I can get a resume for IT, which shows Laurentian University or University of Waterloo. Well, I'm going to look at University of Waterloo because that's the cream of the crop. But if there's no experience behind it, it's like, well, I don't know. Whereas Laurentian University with 10 years experience with Bell Canada or Bell Media, for example, well, that person's getting in the room. University of Waterloo is still going to get in the room, but somebody from Laurentian University, period, no experience, is not getting in the room. So it may get you looked at, but without the experience, it probably still won't get you in the room. And there's a lot of level ones out there who didn't go any further, thinking that, well, if I have my education and level one, it'll help. And this is, either someone or you have experience. That's in a competitive industry like this. That's what it comes down to. The lack of it is certainly not going to get you looked at. The existence of it will at least keep the eyes on that resume a little bit longer. It's up to you to sell yourself on that piece of paper to get into the room. That's the job of a resume, is to get into the room, not to close the deal, but to get into the room. So if you have no experience, intern somewhere, because even though you don't get paid for interning, it is experience. Just make sure that where you intern, they're actually going to teach you something. Let's see. Where did I leave off? There it is. Tips to approach to portfolio management questions. So whenever somebody says, what tips do you have for this, or what tips do you have for that? There are no tips. There's no secrets. There's no magic. There's nothing I hold back and say, oh, you want these nuggets. Oh, I hold those back just for certain people and at certain times. If there was any better approach for this, it would have found its way into the videos long ago. So I would say that if you're going through the videos for each reading, it has the best methods for learning the content, whether it be me drawing a particular picture, whether it's me using a particular analogy to say, well, this is difficult to understand, but think of it this way. And that's called teaching by analogy. Whereas if you can understand the relationships in this analogy, this is the same thing. Any tips to learning something would have found its way into the videos, which means that what I'm presenting you with in terms of the teaching approach that I'm using for that particular concept is the tip. That's the best that I can say on that. As a qualified Big Four accountant, what would be the best way to prepare for level 1 February attempt starting now? Starting now. November 19th. Well, FRA is not going to cause you any grief. Well, I think we can say that. I don't know what your knowledge is of any of the other asset classes, but time is short and you're coming up against holidays. You have the end of year holidays. And well, you know what? Your tax season really doesn't start until, well, I'm going to assume North America here. It doesn't really start until beginning of February, mid-February, really. So it's not as if January is going to murder you in tax season. Is so my recommendation is make a plan to carve out some time and work the plan. Ever consider managing a fixed income portfolio? No. No, I've never had the desire to manage other people's money. Um, Not once. How to learn the basics for someone who can't even. Oh, already did that. What would you say are some topic area skills to leverage for the CFA program? Typically, CPA is a standard for controllers, CFO, etc. Any thoughts, insights? Well, you should. FRA shouldn't be an issue for you. The asset classes, again, they may be a bit challenging. Corporate finance should be pretty straightforward for you as well. Corporate finance is more like management accounting than anything else. That would be about it. I don't know. You would have had an undergrad in accounting, I would seem to think, which means you would have had the standard requirements of, a micro and a macro behind you. So you should be able to get micro and macro fairly easily. You would have had at least some stats and some quant courses behind you as well. What average should I be hitting on the mocks to feel confident? Depends on whose mocks. I think if you're in the 50 to 60, you got to raise your game. If you're 60 to 70, lean into it a bit more. 70 to 80, I think you're on the right track. Do you have any book recommendations when it comes to math? If one wants to be as comfortable with numbers, quant maths as you, some sort of math for dummies kind of math resources. Not really. Here's the thing with level 1, 2, and 3. It's arithmetic. It's not math, not by a long shot. There's no calculus. Now, in arriving at some of the formulas that you use, calculus has been used to arrive at those particular formulas. So modified duration equals Macaulay duration divided by 1 plus r. That is the result of a first derivative of Macaulay duration. And I think there is a video on the site which I lead you through calculating the first derivative to prove it to you that is the answer. But you are not required to do any calculus on this exam at all. The most difficult thing you're going to do is natural log and the exponent to get back from natural log. And you see that in level 1 quant when you do continuous compounding. That's it. Everything else is plus, minus, addition, subtraction, and power. 1 plus r to the power of 3. So if it's 5%, it's 1.05 to the power of 3. That's as complex as it gets. That the arithmetic is grade 9 at most. Maybe grade 8, grade 7 arithmetic, but grade 9 at most. It is. So the arithmetic is not difficult at all. So it is not mathematical as much as it's arithmetic. Math is, prove the following, and it's just a lot of abstractness. There's no abstract mathematics on here whatsoever. It is all really easy stuff. So I don't know that you need another book for that. I would like to start applying the things I learned in CFA curriculum. I currently work in client services departments and not able to apply the same in my day-to-day. Please advise. I think, honestly, what everybody who starts level 1 should do is start a mock portfolio. If you open an account with Interactive Brokers, you only have to put in a couple $100. That's it. You don't even have to trade anything, but you'll have a paper account that when you log in, it has live trading or paper account. Click on paper account. You can log in and it's real-time data. you can play the market all day long, is you should be building a portfolio. I would recommend that you take one company from each of the 11 sectors of the economy. That your portfolio should have 11 companies, and that's it. And you want to try to pick the best company from the S&P 500 in each of those sectors. And then follow those 11 companies. They report earnings 4 times a year, so there is 44 earnings events. There's 44 10Qs that you'll read, which should take you about an hour, and there's 44 investor conference calls that you'll listen to. So you'll be putting in about 100 hours a year on this. But if you're sitting in a meeting, or not a meeting, but a job interview, you suddenly can talk about 11 different sectors of the economy, because each of your companies that are reporting, when they give guidance, they're going to talk about the state of their industry, the state of their economy. We're in a challenging situation. So if you go to DH Horton and you read their last report, they note 7, which is a management commentary, they talk about their particular industry and the challenges that they face. That's a lot of power in an interview to be able to jump from one sector to the next. The other reason you should do that is, what if you find this shit boring? What if you're doing it and you're going, oh, I can't stand this stuff, it's so boring? Then stop. Why go through 3 years of it, hope to get a job, only for something that you find so boring that you can't even pay attention to? If you're going to spend 200 to 300 hours a year playing a role-playing game, I can't think of a better role-playing game than the market, where you are your character. And the more you learn, the more hit points you have. You know, you can track your returns, you could track your Sharpe ratio, you can calculate all sorts of things. And, in every interview, you can bring your portfolio printout with you, your report printout. You could show them what your performance was to date. You could say, look, I restricted myself to 1 pick in each of the 11 sectors. Here's my Sharpe ratio. Here's my performance. That's experience. Without having to wait for somebody to hand you experience. Experience exists out there. There's a whole beautiful game being played every single day. Jump in. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. Don't play with real money until you know what you're doing, but paper trade. And you will learn more than you could ever imagine by actually being in the game. I think that answered your question, right? Yeah, I would like to start applying the things I learned in CFA. That's exactly what you can do. Just jump in the market. And every Sunday on my YouTube channel, there is the Market Outlook, where I do apply things that you will come across in level 1, 2, and 3. Some exam periods, months aren't open yet. On the CFAI site, that is true. On our site, no. If you use the drop-down menu for selecting your exam, select level 1, 2, or 3 for 2023. All the windows are open for you to subscribe to. How to turn on captions on your videos. On the site, I don't think we have captions on our videos on the site. The cost of getting that done, we looked into this before. The cost of getting it done is outrageous. Not only that, the words print right over my printing on the screen. And I use the whole screen, top to bottom, that if we were going to put the scripts in, because you can get the scripts done. If we were going to put scripts in, I would have to redo all the videos, and instead of being full screen, I would have to move the writing up because the words print at the bottom. And if I don't, then it prints, the words would print right over what I'm printing, or whatever I wrote on the screen. We tried doing it for a couple of videos, and the cost to getting it done was outrageous. It was super expensive just to do one video. That to do it every year for almost 400 hours of video across 3 levels, we would almost have to triple our price just to pay for captions. And I think only a handful of people each year ask for captions. So it's one of those things that You can't please everybody, right? That's one of the things that we were willing to let go. Where to buy or find mock exams on the internet? Any sources you recommend? Our site. You can buy mock exams right off our site. Do you suggest any strategy? Remember all the wordy concepts. I don't know that there's any strategy other than what you probably already know. What did you do in your university courses? You would do the same thing. Yeah. And I'm not sure what you mean by wordy concepts. If you find them wordy, you have to find a way to simplify them. And sometimes there is no simplification. There's some nuance that you have to describe. If you know it's not difficult. Do you suggest any strategy? Okay. Can you please provide strategy for I already did that. I complete my master's in August. When is a suitable time? Get your master's out of the way first. Have a focus. Keep one thing in front of you. When you start to put too many things on your plate, everything suffers. It's possible to just search your lecture PDF notes. They're not lecture PDF notes in a sense. The PDFs are what's written on the screen, so that you don't have to keep hitting pause and making notes. They're already done for you. Everything that you see on the screen is written on that, is written down for you. And no, we don't sell those separately. How to practice QBank questions from your website. I've already answered that. Is mastering the curriculum enough, or do we actually need Wiley? Well, Wiley uses their own books, and the exam is not based on anybody's books but CFAI. So if you have mastered the CFAI curriculum, anything else is a distraction at that point. Please advise on any extra skills like learning Python, R, advanced math I can explore and acquire to be better prepared for the long term, so I can switch to a more core finance. Well, I think R and Python are important. Being very good at Excel, I think, is important. Advanced math, I wouldn't worry too much about advanced math because you won't be doing advanced math, but you will have to understand what function call to make to get a certain thing done. So you might need the area under a curve. And if that's the case, then there's a function call for that, or there's something in Excel that can get that done. So it's just a matter of being aware of what functions get done, what you need to get done, but you don't actually have to calculate it. In regard to the quant section, how should we obtain the t-value? Will the tables be given? Either the tables will be given, or the value itself will be given, or I shouldn't say the table, a section of the table that's relevant for the question. What are the common traits of your students who passed all levels at a first attempt? I don't know, because this isn't a classroom where I actually get to meet these people. So I couldn't tell you what a common trait is because they're all names to us. Most of the time we don't even know what our candidates look like because very few actually upload a picture so that their picture is available to us. So I don't know that there is a common trait. I'm planning to go for an MBA in finance, but I've heard that there's a huge overlap between MBA finance program and CFA, so it would lead to a waste of efforts and resources. Yeah, there's an overlap, but understand the role of some institutions in the marketplace. Yes, they are learning institutions, but some are also social institutions in the sense that they confer upon you inclusion into a group that you otherwise might not be in. So depending on what school you graduate from, you may be in or out. There are some schools which do not lead to Wall Street. There are some schools which automatically lead to Wall Street. And it's not really just the school itself, right? You have to ask yourself, who do you want knowing you? Do you want the graduating class of Wharton and Harvard or Stanford or Yale knowing you? And do you want to know them? Or do you want the graduating class of Tri-County Community College knowing you? what's the point, right? So when you pay to be in places like that, you're not just paying for the education, you're paying for having access to all the other people who are there, because they're all from that school, from that launching pad. They're all going to go on to be well placed people. And later in their careers, they're the ones that are going to be very well placed. Those are the people you want knowing you, and you want knowing you in a good way. So it's the people that you have access to that those places do offer. CFA does a little bit of that in the CFA societies. So if there is a CFA society in your region, it is that is your social capital. That is how you build your social capital. That is how people get to know who you are. And that's the important part, right? It's not so much who you know, it's who knows you. And being in places that have the ability to interact socially are highly important, and stuff you're just not going to get over Zoom. You actually have to be somewhere to get that done. So when you're looking at your MBA, you can say, well, will this fast track my social capital? So that you say, well, look, I'm going to pay for some knowledge I already know, but I'm going to get access to a group of people that are going to be important that I may never have known. So your first question is, what companies recruit from that school that you want to go to? And if the companies that recruit from that school are not places you care to be, then who the hell cares, right? Figure out where the graduates go, and that's where you want to be. You want to be there if the graduates are going to where you want to be. They don't tell you that when you apply for school. They think it's all about education, but it's not. It's about knowing the right people, because we still live in a world like that. I don't think that's going away anytime soon. Have you done the FRM or CIM and how to compare it with CFA? No, I can say no on that. I'm thinking of taking a financial modeling course between level 1 and level 2. Do you recommend doing so? Or do you advise moving directly to level 2? Level 2 has a financial modeling reading. The last one in FRA leads you through everything that you would do if you were going to set up a financial model, a 3-statement model. And it has spreadsheet examples that you can download as well. So you may want to look at what is offered at level 2 first. Not only that, you're not going to appreciate a financial modeling course and the decisions that are made within the spreadsheet until you've been through level 2 equity. Then you will begin to appreciate why you're tracking certain variables or why you're setting your spreadsheet up in a certain way. So I think after level 1, I would say it would be premature to be thinking about financial modeling. Let's see. I've answered most of these. Would it be possible to get a more accurate statistical report on where and what did you perform well and not so well after answering the Q bank? It would help with weaknesses and strengths. Well, I don't own the company anymore. All I can do is pass information like that along and say, well, are you working on something like this? Whenever you suggest stuff like this, it requires resources. And the resource it requires more than anything is IT, which is the one resource which we've always been short on, and almost every company is short on IT resources. With all the IT layoffs happening now, we are hoping that that starts to get better, so that in a year from now, we will have much more IT talent than we used to have, and then we could start being more IT driven as opposed to just learning driven at this point. But there's a list of things that we'd like to do in terms of having, more technology driven interaction on the site, but you need people to code it. And that's been the limiting factor for not just us, but for a lot of companies, is finding the IT to actually get it done. Let's see. I'm pursuing my CFA level 1, but it feels all over the place. I've been reading investment and portfolio management books. It goes in order with the investment process. Well, yeah, level 1 is a very big survey course, right? So it introduces you to equities, and there's 5, 6 readings. It's just an introduction. Then it'll introduce you to fixed income. There's 5, 6 readings. Then it'll introduce you to alternative investments and derivatives. There's a couple of readings there. So you have the 4 big asset classes: alternatives. You have equities, fixed income, alternatives, and derivatives. Then you have some process courses, and that's your quant. Then you'll have, economics, which is more of call it more foundational, because without a good understanding of the economy that you're in, the ability to assess the economy, it's hard to know what stage of the business cycle you're in, hard to know which sector of the economy you want exposure to. It seems like it's all over the place because it is a mile wide and an inch deep. The CFA is not a specialist designation. It is a generalist designation. It's meant to make you a very good generalist. So think about it that way, is that when you're done level 3, you're going to know a little about a lot of things, but you're not going to know a lot about a few things. That's where experience will then come into play, and where you begin to take more specialized designations like CAIA for alternative investments, or ERM for energy risk management, or the FRM for financial risk management, depending on what it is you want to do. So the CFA is your generalist designation. So if it feels all over the place, it's what it is. It's like, a year 1 survey course, where you're not going to dive deep on any one particular topic. You're just going to, review a whole bunch of topics in the field that you then specialize in year 2 and year 3. Let's see. What would work in data analysis role within a financial services institution count as relevant experience? I don't know. That is interesting. I'm not sure if it would. Has to do with analyzing economics of instruments. Could. For this, you should. That's a question I would direct at CFAI. How would you structure the 4-week review? Already did that. Blockchain tech is useful, though. Yeah, the blockchain is useful. Don't throw that out. Throw out all that nonsense of the coins, though. Any suggestion on study method or approach for those struggling with the statistics portion of L1? I find it hard to grasp intuitively. Yeah, so whenever you have those particular issues, sometimes having a tutor, a one-on-one, where you can ask questions as the material is unfolding. So as they're talking, you can then say, but what about this? And does this do that? And if you're talking out your questions at the same time that you're engaging, you can steer it the right way, as opposed to hoping that somebody says something that you need to hear. You can ask specifically for what you need to hear. And sometimes just 1 or 2 hours is enough to say, okay, I'm on the path now. I get it. Thanks. Calendar for 2024. What's the best time to begin studying after finishing grad studies in August of 2023? If you're going to do level 1, if you're done in August, to take level 1 for February, you have September, October, November, December, January, and half of February. I am studying your materials and it's amazing. Do you think I should integrate with CFA curriculum? If yes, are there particular readings you suggest to read? Try it yourself. On those ones, I say use just an experimentation method. Is pick a reading at random, watch the video, and then read the reading. See if it adds any incremental illumination. If you find that it doesn't, then you have your answer. If you find that it does, then the ones that you listen to, you say, I'm still not getting it. Well, maybe those are the ones where if you go to the reading, there'll be a sentence where you go, oh, if only he had said this sentence. It might be that one sentence for you that takes care of some mental block. Looking at, okay, is there any way to turn? Probably answered that. One has a degree in economics. What is the learning hurdle for level 1? Well, if you have a degree in economics, level 1 and level 2 economics should not be a problem for you. Same with level 2 quant, because if you have a degree in economics, you've probably already done some econometrics. So multiple regression and time series analysis should not be an issue for you either. Also, in doing a degree in economics, you probably would have had at least 1 or 2 accounting courses as just part of the requirement of going through. I think it's a first year requirement in almost any business course you're in, I think. But other than that, I don't know so much that it's going to help you with fixed income, help you with derivatives, or any of the asset classes per se. So, but it does demonstrate that you have the ability to learn. So I don't know that learn this stuff or learn that stuff. If you know how to learn, it doesn't matter what's written on the page. You should be able to learn it, right? For a premium bond, is the effective yield and simple yield? Well, okay, that's a content question. Based on statistics, returns, and correlation of the equity market, doesn't crypto provide some form of diversification benefits, even investing 1% of your portfolio? So does dog shit. I mean, I can sell you all the dog poop you want. It's uncorrelated with the market. The value of it is uncorrelated with the market. It'll give you diversification benefits. So if you want to send me 1% of your portfolio, I'll go around the neighborhood. I'll scoop up all the dog poop you want and I'll send it to you. It's uncorrelated with the market. Just because something is uncorrelated and it offers a diversification benefit, if the diversification benefit comes because it's uncorrelated, you can get that in almost anything. Go in your front yard, rake up leaves, put it in the bag, and I guarantee you the value of those leaves will not fluctuate with the market. It will be completely uncorrelated. There you go. You can just buy up your neighbor's leaves, do the same thing. So when we look for diversification benefits, what we want to know is, does it protect me from an adverse move in another asset class? And if the answer is no, I mean, all the dog poop in the world is not going to protect you from a market sell-off. So has crypto done that? No. Has crypto been a hedge against inflation? No. Not really. It went up, but now it's coming down. And some of them have gone away. Companies are going bankrupt. It has not lived up to any of the promises that it was supposed to have, and it has basically allowed almost every criminal enterprise to, well, I shouldn't say almost every criminal enterprise. It has created a whole industry of criminal enterprise. So the idea of it providing diversification benefits because it's uncorrelated, you can get that from dog poop. So I don't know that I would use that argument unless you can show conclusively that it does have some portfolio protection value when some other asset class is performing weak. That was the whole idea behind bonds, is it had a negative correlation, so you had that diversification benefit. Now, if you follow the Warren Buffett interpretation of diversification, he says diversification is a portfolio loser because you are diversifying away the very gains you're hoping to get, the very alpha you're hoping to get. That a well-diversified portfolio diversifies away the alpha. Why would you want to do that? So Warren Buffett holds very concentrated positions and very concentrated portfolios because he doesn't buy into the diversification argument at all. Diversification, based on lack of correlation, you can get that from almost anything. There you go. That has no correlation with the market. Give me 1% of your portfolio, I'll send you this. I'll even fill it to the top. I'll even put a little bit more water in there. That's a ridiculous statement, right? But there are plenty of things that aren't correlated with the market that provide that. Sure, it will diversify your portfolio, but will not provide any protection when it's needed. Fail level 3 first try. I don't believe. Okay, there we go. I've taken level 1 twice and failed both times. Am I just dumb? No. I passed my master's and undergrads, but I'm failing at these undergrad level into. So here is what I think is a sort of a. I have to blame this for some of the failure. When you are going through the reading, you get to those multiple choice questions in the middle of the reading. There's this blue box, and there might be 3 or 4 multiple choice questions, and you read them and you're getting them right. And you think, this is easy. I think that they shouldn't be there. Those easy things shouldn't be there because it gives you this sense that, well, this is self-study. There's a whole bunch of it. It can't possibly be that hard. I mean, it's got to be easy, right? And these questions are showing me, I mean, if this is the type of question that's being asked, I got this. And I think a lot of people underestimate the rigor of what level 1 really should be. And I know that level 1 has, even though CFAI won't admit it, I know it has gotten more difficult because there are fewer questions, and the questions have raised from simple remembering to more an understanding level. So there's less quant, more conceptual questions, and less recall and more understanding. That is a level of difficulty higher. Whether you think you're writing more difficult questions, it wouldn't matter. You may be saying, but our questions are no more difficult than they used to be, and that may be true, but you've taken away the easy questions. So if 25% of the exam was easy before, now you've taken that away. So even though none of your questions are any more difficult than they used to be, they're all difficult questions at that level. They're all now at that same level. So I think, failing it twice just might be an underestimation of the exact rigor that it is. Treat it like a full semester undergrad, not just one course, but as a full semester undergrad. Treat it that way with the same rigor and the same amount of hours you'd put into that, and you'll be just fine. What undergrad backgrounds to typically CFA? Typically a business background, either in finance or accounting, but typically a business background, but not entirely, but typically. I'm pursuing to better understand work at financial firms as a software engineer. I think it's a lot of overkill for a software engineer. I think a knowledge of the asset classes may help you. But as a software engineer, you probably already have more advanced math behind you than what the CFA would require, which you're going to need depending on what type of algorithms or data structures you plan to use. You may need, what kind of sorting algorithms you use. You may need that sort of thing. But to get into the intricacies of the Cobb-Douglas production function, or monetary policy, or portfolio management, especially at level 3, when you get into individual portfolio management, the IPS, asset allocation, things like that. I think that if you're looking to enhance your software engineering career, I don't know that this is going to do anything for you. But if you're looking to make a lateral move out of software engineering over onto the finance side, a more quant-driven perspective, then sure, then okay. But if you're really just going to be a financial engineer, I don't think you really need to understand the markets per se to code what somebody's asking you to code. If they say, write an algorithm that extracts this information from this source and let's look for anomalies related to whatever changes in the tone of a voice of something, or the words used in the speech, something like that. I don't know that the CFA is going to incrementally add any value to that. Okay, is there any cut and dry strategies to answering MCQs? No. You either know it or you don't. If you don't know the answer, process of elimination helps. If you have to guess, you got a 33% chance, but if you can absolutely eliminate one, and it's a choice between two, you now have a 50% chance. The best thing is the answer. Sometimes you don't know the answer, but you do know what's not the answer, so you can eliminate A and B. You can say, well, I know it's not A and I know it's not B. I don't know why it's C, but it can only be C because it can't possibly be A and B. So it might be, what's the value of this derivative? A and B might be negative, B might be positive, and you may say, I don't know how to calculate it, but I know it's a gain. So it can't be A and B because they're both negative. That might be enough. to get the answer without having to actually know how to calculate it, right? Hmm. How often should I review, or tips for making a good review strategy? I'd say every 10 days is a good time to review in the beginning. And then when you get closer to the exam, make it every Sunday. Um, what topic do I suggest for business valuation? Best certificate regarding that topic? I don't know. I don't really know. I just assume that, if you've been through level two equity and then you start applying that, you should be able to bootstrap your learning all the way up. You start, with a publicly traded company, and then you work down to a mid cap, to a small cap, to a micro cap. And once you can evaluate a micro cap company, making the jump to a private company isn't too difficult. I think you could pretty much get all the tools you want from level two. What kind of job should I try to get into after L1? So it's a good question. What type of job should I try to get into? There are two ways to look at that. Number one is the economic reality of life. You got to get a job. So sometimes you take what you can get and you hope that you can work your way out of it, or up from it, or sideways from it. So if you want to be in asset management, but all you have is investor relations, you think, well, maybe there's a pathway, which I would ask in the interview, is there a pathway? As opposed to thinking about what kind of jobs should you try to get, think about what kind of jobs do you want? Where do you see yourself in 5 years or 10 years? What is it that you want to do? What would get you out of bed every morning? And for some people, it's dealing with other people. Well, then wealth management. For some other people, it's figuring out complex problems. Well, then maybe you want to be on the quant side of things. Not so much dealing with people or with the trades themselves, but just generating an algorithm that takes advantage of some regularity in data that you've seen. Maybe numbers and data turn you on. Maybe it's a particular asset class. Maybe it's equities. Maybe it's a particular sector of the economy. What is it that you want to do, and get that job? And if you can't get that job, get an adjacent job that has a pathway to that job. But to take a job in investor relations or client services, for example, that has no pathway to asset management, and that's where you want to go, well, basically you're basically going into a room that has no exit other than quitting. And if that job that you had for 4 years in investor relations means nothing to a firm for asset management, then have you wasted 4 years of your time? Have you traded 8 hours of your life every day for a paycheck, which is rather empty? Figure out where you want to be and where you want to go, and don't be afraid to ask for it. No one is going to take offense to you asking for something you want. Maybe if you demand it, they'll take offense, but for asking for something you want, no one will take offense. In fact, it's impressive, and they can't help but respect you for asking, even if the answer is no, right? Don't demand. Walk in and say, I'm looking for this. I'm willing to do this if you tell me that there's a pathway to that. And if there is, I will be the best this that you can ever get, as long as you tell me there's a pathway to that. No one will fault you for that. Can you refer me to these videos, as I couldn't find them? Oh, you're talking to someone else. What score in your mocks could I be comfortable? Okay, I already answered that. Are you planning to teach a financial modeling course? Because it seems like an important requirement everywhere. For financial modeling, The answer is yes, and the answer is yes. And let me explain why it's not a solid. Oh yeah, absolutely. Um, every industry is different. Every industry is different. So you can do a generic type of financial modeling course for companies that, let's say, produce a product. Uh, um, but if they have mostly financial assets on their balance sheet and they don't really produce a product, everything you learn about that is most of it's not going to transfer to that other company. So that in financial modeling, it's not so much a once and done and there you go, off you go, you're good. It's more industry specific, because there are different metrics that you have to know. There are different ways. There are different things that are important. There are some things where you would have to forecast based on something, and other things you don't really have to forecast too much, because there's a certain relationship between asset value and leverage and rates, depending on any hedging instrument that they're using, where a lot of the income is predetermined. So to do it, there's a generic way that you can do it, which may help you 20 to 30% of the way for most industries, probably not at all for financial industries. Um, some natural resource industries, that would be different as well. So I would say that for financial modeling, you're probably to do, to do it well would have to be industry specific. I guess that would be the best that I could say on that respect. It would have to be, the best way is industry specific as opposed to one generic way. You can show it generically in how you would set up your spreadsheet such that you don't fall into the trap of having cells that become very difficult to work with, where you want to try to put as many of the variables as you can in separate places, where if you change one variable, everything changes on balance sheet, income statement, cash flow statement. That requires a lot of thinking up front, of what all of your possible variables and your assumptions are. So you start from variables and assumptions and everything that you need, and you have to have a separate part of your spreadsheet that is all just for that, which is a good thing to have, because then all your assumptions are in one place. And then you can start changing some things in your assumptions that then change in your spreadsheet. So the answer is yes, but it'll probably be industry specific. A couple of industries that I'll choose that might have 30 or 40% generalizability, but 50 to 60% very specific to that industry. I'm currently doing an accounting and finance degree, my final year. Okay. How many days before the exam should someone attempt the mocks? About 3-4 weeks out. Okay, that's an answer to somebody else. You'd only know if you knew the scores others had. Okay. Then level 1 quant, but stopped to do my financial advisor course, resuming in January. Would L1 November be a good goal? Oh, you're resuming your studies in January and you want to target November? Yeah, I think that's fine. What do you think the odds that the SEC makes impactful changes, regulations to the options market due to the recent massive growth of options play in the market? I think the only place that you would make regulation is at the broker level, to ensure that the individual that has access to options does actually know what they're doing. But other than that, I don't see that there would be, I don't know why you would regulate that even more. Do you have a limited number per session? Is it possible to answer all questions per LOS at one time? 25, I think. Do you think giving both CFA exams and actuarial exams are worth it to be best at financial risk manager post? If you want to be the best at a financial risk manager post, then do the FRM, which is the financial risk manager. So accounting and CFA, I think they lead down different paths. I think accounting is way overkill for CFA, but CFA is way overkill for an accountant. Let's see. Thoughts on intelligence and CFA passing? I don't think it is. What's somebody doing down here? Stop watching the stream. Find love. 69 megaduck. Oh God, you got to be kidding me. Imagine that's your life and you had to go around and all you could do is just leave comments to direct people to your porn site. And that's where you've gotten to in life. That when your parents are asked, what does Jimmy do? The parents have to lie because they're embarrassed about Jimmy. My God. Anyways, oh, well, there it is, right? Anyways, that just jumped in front of me and I lost where I was in the question. So give me a second to see if I can find out where. Oh, look at this. There's Tinder hot girls, the best. Really? Here? Oh, man. Come on. Where was I? Okay, I can't find out where I left off. So I'll start at the bottom and work my way up. That's easy. Okay. Somebody's answering. I work in PE firm in middle office as a financial controller. Do you think CFA can help me to be in the investment team front office? Private equity? You would have to ask your firm that, and they would be in the best position to tell you whether or not there's a pathway to that side from where you are. Let's see. Will the treasury officer role in a private company count as CFA? Treasury officer? I don't know. Any of those type of questions of what counts for towards the CFA, I think are better directed at CFA because I do think that they've expanded the definition of what they'll accept. One on Monday. Please, could you quickly remind on currency appreciation, depreciation? Well, now you keep in mind that what you see in CFA is a ratio. That's not a currency quote. But what you're doing is you're taking something from the market and you're giving a currency quote. That's not what CFA has. CFA has ratios so that if you saw GBP over USD equals 1.1, if you saw that in the CFA reading, the denominator is always equal to 1. That means the numerator is the price. That's the price of $1 US is $1.10, 1.1 British pounds. Whereas when you look at it in the market, the price currency is the second one. So be careful with that. That's about all I could say. Just remember that what you see in the readings are ratios where the denominator is always equal to 1. Okay. Would getting level 1 help getting into entry level ER? I don't know what ER is referring to. Wouldn't people be more interesting if they studied philosophy instead of finance? They might be more interesting, but all the big philosophy factories have moved over to China, so there are no jobs available anymore. How much should I score in your mock? Okay, I already answered that. I work in PE for already answered that. I'm a shareholder for a bit. I don't think CFA proves anything in finance. Any of it does, however, show your dedication, improving yourself, and opinion on continued learning. Yeah, I mean, it does show that, but you can show your dedication to improving yourself in a whole bunch of ways. I think what the CFA does is it brings you up to speed very quickly on a whole bunch of topics. And I think it signals to the employer that your vocabulary includes this stuff so that you're not going to be blindsided by saying, "What the hell is a swap? Never heard of that before." Well, you have. You may not be an expert on swaps. You may not be able to set up a swap. You may need some help walking through it, but at least you know what the hell a swap is. And that may be enough for an employer, right? Why did I learn Russian? I like the sound of it. That's really about it. I like the sound of it. And when the Soviet Union fell apart, I really thought that it was going to be the future. Turned out it was China. I should have learned Chinese. So learned the wrong language. Well, not really. I mean, Okay, so I answered all the questions there. Let's go back down to the bottom. Any chance of applied option streams? I know you used IB. By streams, I think you mean, would I do something like this live for the applied series? Yeah, I was thinking next Saturday I'd do a live feed like this, particularly just for the applied series. So yeah, I can do that. That's not difficult to do. How's our time? Oh, we got lots of time here. What do you think about universities that adopt the body of knowledge and have CFA affiliated programs? Are they any good or just marketing? That's an interesting question. I think what they're trying to do, I think what some places try to do is they're trying to determine, or at least trying to be more relevant to practice. And I think that the academics they have probably lack a lot of practice behind them because they're academics. To be a finance professor, there is no requirement that you have ever traded a single security in your entire life. That I think the best way for them to get as close to practice as possible is to affiliate with the CFAI. So it could be, I wouldn't chalk it up to laziness that, well, they're just lazy and they're just riding on somebody else's work that's already done. I think it's that they say, how can we get our student closer to practice, knowing that we as academics are not practitioners? And this is the easiest step that they can make in that direction. So I don't know that it would be, I don't know that I would say that it's just marketing as much as it would be positioning, that they're positioning the candidate to say, well, if you're going to go into finance, you're probably going to run into this designation at some point, since it does represent a closer step towards practice than the conventional textbooks that we've used. Let's use this. And you get to, knock two things out at the same time. You get credit for your degree, and you get your level 1 or your level 2 done at the same time. What's your take on corporate finance as a career? I've gotten a great offer in F50 office, but it's not traditional high finance. Will any of my CA curriculum get out to use? Well, it depends on when you say corporate finance, exactly what aspect, without knowing more about the company and what it is that you will have exposure to. It's hard for me to answer that. University graduate analytics boot camp, would it help complement skills gained from CFA for breaking into quant? Without seeing the description of what this boot camp is, who's conducting this boot camp in terms of their credibility, I couldn't even begin to answer that. We're getting L1 help get into entry-level equity research role. Well, it would help. It's not like it would be zero help. It's certainly not going to hurt. So that if you were going to get a job anyways, it's not going to suddenly not get you the job. If you weren't going to get the job, it may increase the length of time that they look at your resume. It may get you into the room, but in the end, you still have to land the job. So it's helpful, sure. How helpful? I don't really know. And I think there has been some attempts to measure that helpfulness. There has been a couple of research papers in the last 5 or 6 years that have attempted to answer that question of, is it useful? Is it helpful? I don't know if they've answered that particular question, is does it get you in the room? I think they found that most employers are reluctant to admit that, oh, yes, I hire people because they have the CFA. That's the wrong question to ask, is not, are you more willing to hire somebody who's a charter holder? I think the right question to ask is, are you more willing to interview someone who's a charter holder? I think there you'll see an absolute correlation between having that experience and getting in the room. In the room, you still have to land the job. And if you can't talk about the market, if you can't talk about the Fed, if you can't talk about rates, if you didn't watch last night's game, and you can't talk about it, then the obvious question is, you say you're interested in finance, you tell me you have a CFA, but yet you seem to have no awareness of where we are in the market. You know nothing of what's going on. You don't know where rates are. You don't know the name of the chairman of the Federal Reserve. You don't seem to know anything about any particular company or sector. I wonder, what do you want? Are you looking for a career, or are you looking for a paycheck? Companies don't want people who are looking for a paycheck. You're looking for a career? We got a career. And while we're helping each other out, I'll give you a paycheck. But what they don't want is somebody showing up for the paycheck. Listen, I have this resume and I want a paycheck. No, I have this resume and I want this career. You want somebody to pursue this career. Let's talk about money secondary, right? Okay, let's see where we are here. Okay. Can you do a video on how to use interactive brokers, or is that something you've already done? Yeah, so in the applied series, if you go through the options course, I do show you how to use the options trader and how to set that up, depending on what you're looking at. And I do use the portfolio manager window as well to show you how to track your dollar delta beta and how to adjust positions based on whether you need to raise or lower anything, how to track your theta decay, all of that kind of stuff. Once we get to currencies and futures, I'll show you more on that. What else did we do in the applied options? The volatility viewer. So for IV levels and IV skew, and the term structure of implied volatility, showed you how to use that function, how to set up that window. If you're going through the technical analysis module of the applied series, I do show you how to set up the charts for it. Whenever there's something that we want to see on a chart, I show you how to set it up on the chart. Not everything needs to be shown. Some things, once I show you where all of the indicators are, all the technical indicators are, I don't need to keep showing you where all the technical indicators are. So once you see it once, I assume that you'll play around with whatever options that you see there. If I have an issue with something during the study, like hypotheses tests and such, should I redo everything until complete understanding and go through the next chapter? So move on, or stay where you are until you get it. I myself have trouble moving on. So if I'm at some point in a reading and I'm just not getting it, I do have a problem moving on. I simply can't with this question in my head. I simply just can't move on. I'm just not comfortable with it. But sometimes the next reading is so unrelated that you can move on. Normally in textbooks, each reading is progressive, so it is hard to move from one to the next with holes in your knowledge from the previous readings because you'll just get more and more lost. In CFA, the progression sometimes is unrelated, so that you can get to the next reading and it's unrelated to the ones that came before it. So if you find that you're not quite getting something, it is okay to move on. Let's see. Already answered that. Already did that. Any podcasts you recommend? I listen to Macro Voices, but they seem like doom or quack sometimes. Macro Compass. He's bright. He's really. I think he has a heavy fixed income background. But he's bright. He's good, and he is a teacher in the sense that he does explain. So he does take the time to not only show you something, but to teach you why that something is important. I like his style. There's there's another one that's out of Silicon Valley. It has 4 guys in it. One guy's name is Sachs. There's one that was one of the initial investors or employees of Facebook. I forget the name of that one. I like that one. I don't really spend a lot of time listening to a lot of different podcasts. I've listened to quite a few. Some of them are just of a style that I don't like, whether it be, just where they're not deep enough or they're not thoughtful enough. So there's one I listened to for a while only because they were entertaining. I forget the name of it now, but they would just cycle through a whole bunch of different names. And from week to week, you listen to it and it's like, well, hang on, last week you loved this, now you hate this. And it almost seems as if they have no overriding view of the market in which they then trade their view of the market. They just seem to be all over the place and just almost casino like, almost betting. I'm going to buy this before earnings. I didn't. I'm buying crypto at this level. I'm buying Bitcoin. I think in and out stuff like that. I'm not a big fan of that. But they're entertaining. They have they're entertaining, so I have it on in the background. But other than that, I don't know that there's any really good ones I listen to. I like Real Yield from Bloomberg. I like Wall Street Week from Bloomberg. They're not as flashy and entertaining as some of the other ones out there, but I don't like sloppy thinking, and I don't like incorrect statements. I don't like statements like nobody's gonna, so one was on this morning, they were talking about housing, and the statement was, at these rates, nobody's gonna buy houses. Nobody's gonna buy houses. Nobody. Existing home sales last week came in at a run rate of 4.4 million for the year, and nobody's buying houses. So when you start talking in extremes like that, like nobody's going to buy houses, that's not careful thinking, which leads you, if you start thinking nobody's buying housing, then it starts leading you to think about how you would look at other things with that thought in your head. That is clearly a wrong thought to have in your head. It's not that nobody is going to buy housing. It's a certain type is going to buy housing, and houses are still being sold. So what you want to do is you want to find a home builder that's either a premium home builder or one that builds on the low end. You don't want that middle market one. So the premium home builders will still do okay because those people still have money. Those people pay cash. They don't need a mortgage rate. They're insensitive to rates on mortgages. The ones at the low end will do very well because you'll combine the size of the house with the mortgage to get the monthly payment you want. So if we look at DR Horton and we look at its last results, they were great. They were fantastic. $16.50 a year in earnings. They're trading for a little over 5 times earnings. So the statement, nobody's going to buy a house, is, when I hear stuff like that, I think that's not a thoughtful statement. You're not thinking through clearly. You're not playing the game to win. You're being you're using these statements that are extreme statements that are false, and then from that you make that statement, and then you make another statement about what you're going to do based on I don't have the patience to listen to unthoughtful statements like that. So I don't know if I have any podcasts I recommend, but look up the Macro Compass. It's out of I think he's in Denmark. I think he's an Italian living in Denmark, and he has another guy that's in Denmark as well with him sometimes, and they have some good people on that they interview. But he's thoughtful. I like the way he talks about things. He's quite thoughtful. I like listening to him. Do I have a favorite philosopher? Anybody who knows me knows who my favorite philosopher is. It's Nietzsche. What financial journals would you recommend to read? With the proliferation of different sources to get your news media now, I don't know so much that financial journals. When you say financial journals, I think you mean a consumer-facing journal and not an academic-facing journal. If you meant financial journals as in academic journals, there's only one, which is JAF, Journal of Finance. JOF, Journal of Finance, which is the king of the finance journals. But as far as publications go, I think Wall Street Journal still has its cachet. Barron's, I don't think, it used to be a thing. I don't know so much that it is anymore. And through my news feed with Interactive Brokers, I seem to get all the Barron's articles anyway. So why would I ever pay for that? I think some of the more interesting stuff is happening on some of the Substacks. So if you go over to the Substack site, I don't know what it is, but there's a lot of good financial journalists who are now have their own Substack, and a lot of good individual analysts that for some reason or other feel they want to be their own independent analysts that are doing some good stuff on the Substacks. What about the Rational Reminder podcast? Some of, I think what you want is a podcast that speaks to a more professional investor or a more, either high-end retail or institutional. I think Rational Reminder is probably targeted towards the middle of the road retail investor, which may not be useful for you. Maybe it is. I don't know, but I seem to think you'd want your information to be a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more highbrow when it comes to the role or where you see yourself in the market, that you're not just, this passive investor saying, should I buy this ETF or should I buy that ETF? That you're looking for something with a little bit more, depth to it. Best derivative books for beginners. I think the whole textbook is still the best out there. Do you play chess? Not really. Younger age, yeah, I got into it a bit, but you realize when you start learning it that it's not as simple as a game as you thought it would be. That you get to this point where you can beat everybody because you've learned it. But to have a good game, you have to play against other people who know it, and you keep getting beat, which is not fun. I got to the point where it was not fun either way. It's not fun playing with these people, and it wasn't fun playing with these people unless I really dived into it and raised my game to the point where I could play with these people. I just didn't at the time felt it was something I really cared to pursue. So it was like, okay, I got this far, I'm happy. But, to go any further, I have to commit to it now because I can't play these guys, but I can play these guys, but it's no longer fun. Right. So, veterinary surgeon looking forward to a career change in a corporate position in the pet industry. From a veterinary surgeon. Would a combination of CFA with an MBA get me to the room? Well, I think the MBA is probably the first thing you want to do. CFA is finance, heavy finance. MBA is management. And you're looking for a corporate position in the pet industry, I'd probably get an MBA until you realize or until you see that you want to be more on the finance side of things, and then determine whether or not the CFA is useful there in that respect. You seem to know a lot about REITs. Do you have any news outlets get you up in the current events and to understand more about the industry? Yeah. Every single REIT's website, investor relations, every single REIT's website, go to investor relations. You will find investor presentations. You will find news releases. You will find all sorts of information. And you can just enter your name, your email address, and every time there's a news release, it gets automatically sent to your inbox. Every time they declare a dividend, every time there's an investor presentation, every time there's earnings, any news release will automatically get sent to your inbox so that you can create your own news feed by just subscribing to all of these sites on the investor relations sites of the companies that you want to receive information for. And then you read. Everything that you can learn about the REIT industry is given to you by the people in the REIT industry. When you start reading the presentations, you start listening to the conference calls, you start reading their 10Qs, their 10Ks, their annual presentations, you will learn everything you need to know about the REIT industry. If individuals looking for a mentor, where would you guide someone to learn the most about the buy side of the industry or the sell side? Well, a mentor is usually somebody who is in a position to guide you every now and then, not to hold your hand. Never ask a mentor to do that. If you're asking someone to be your mentor, it is because you are going to do a lot of the heavy lifting yourself, but every now and then you're going to go see this person say, kind of torn. I don't know what to do in this situation. If you do that once every couple of months, you'll have a mentor. If you're sending your mentor an email every night and 2 or 3 texts a day, you will not have a mentor, right? Because the mentor is not there to clear the bushes for you and carry you through the trail. It is there to, instruct you on, okay, I see what you're doing here. Maybe try it this way. But it's not going to do the work for you, and certainly doesn't want to spend 200-300 hours a year working on you. And it should be somebody who is willing to do that, and somebody who is physically in the same space as you are. Not somebody who's 5,000 miles away, but physically in the same space you are. And it would help if this person has a vested interest in seeing you succeed. Let's see. Are your children in the finance industry? Don't have any children. I would very much appreciate an expose on Nietzsche's moral philosophy and CFA ethics. Nietzsche would not have agreed with a code of ethics in the least. Nietzsche would have seen it as a way to hold down the best of the best. He would have seen it as a code written by the weak to keep down the strong. He would not have agreed with it at all. Not that he was advocating evil. He never once did that. What he did advocate is that we need to get beyond these concepts of good and evil, and that it is, if in the pursuit of greatness, one's actions can be excused. If it is in the pursuit of greatness and there is greatness, then that person's actions should not be subject to what he would refer to as a slave morality, the morality of the weak to hold down the strong. So he probably would have, I don't think he would have written the CFA exam simply on principle of the ethics. Benji was looking for a mentor. Where would you? Okay, I already did that. Thank you so much for work. Okay. What to do if I fail level 1 but still want to get the CFA? Then do it again. Get back on that horse. Get a better plan. But get back into it. Best path into venture capital. Well, that's a good question. Usually venture capital is made up of two broad types of individuals, and there's no one description of what a venture capital is like. It's kind of like a big mix of a whole bunch of stuff, but usually they'll either have a lot of startup experience in their background with success. So previous entrepreneurs that built a significant business, or they come from the investment banking side where they know how to structure, how to put together the structure of a deal. But you don't just start there. It's not an entry level job. What are your opinions on some of the industry charlatans? Loud voices. So it says Raoul Pal. Why have I seen that name before? Is that Real Vision? That Real Vision? Yeah, I think it is. Interactive Brokers used to give us the Real Vision feed for free, or there was a limited time that you got Real Vision. I remember watching it a few times and I thought, doesn't speak to me. It wasn't really my style, but I don't know enough about it or remember enough about it to have an opinion on it. You say he's an industry charlatan. Maybe he is. I don't know. I would say the difference between, the difference between the two is, or what you'd want to look for is, do you, at the end of it all, still need that person? So the success of a teacher is in no longer being needed. That's how we know we're successful, is when you no longer need us. We're not supposed to be the guardians of knowledge. We're supposed to be, sort of, not, I wouldn't say the sharers of knowledge, but sort of a light that just sort of lights the way on your journey, such that when you get to the end of it, you no longer need us. So if there's a place that is selling you a membership, because in this membership you're going to get ideas every week, or you're going to get access to our trading plan every week, or something like this, that is a product that they're selling you, and you are a customer. That's not a teacher-learner relationship. It's, you're a customer and I'm going to sell you this product, and the product is, I'm going to give you some ideas every week. Never mind where the ideas come from. It comes from what I do. Versus somebody who is willing to show you how to do something on your own, such you don't need to come back to them for ideas every week. That there is some point at which you're done. Now, both of those things have a cost to them, because while knowledge is free, the delivery of it is not always free. You need a server, you need a video player. Amazon doesn't, may say, oh, it's very noble for you to give stuff away for free, but not us. Sorry, we want our paycheck. Staff that you hire, they want to get paid, believe it or not. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. What are you going to pay me? So the delivery of knowledge always has a cost, but the knowledge itself is free. If I'm not selling you knowledge, then I'm selling you a product. So when we say industry charlatan, I would probably use that yardstick in the sense that, is there something you can get from this person that makes you better at what you do, that you no longer need this person, or is this something where you continually need this person? I'm hesitant to put any label on this individual because I'm not familiar enough with it. I will say I would be very, very wary of sites that want to sell you their top picks every week based on their proprietary trading strategy, and that they're making all this money and we want to share this knowledge with you. Number one, they're not making all that money. If they were making all that money, they wouldn't be making YouTube videos. Beware of the people who hang out in front of expensive cars and expensive houses telling you, oh, this is my car, this is my house. That's bullshit too. Those are all props. You can rent those for half an hour to take pictures. And these people that you see in jets, if they feel the need to sit in a jet to sell you their product, that's not their jet. They're simply just renting it on the tarmac for, maybe it might cost them $600 for a half-hour shoot, and then there's 5 or 6 other people waiting outside, waiting to get into the jet for another $600. It's how you make money with your jet, is you sell it for picture props. Beware of those types of people. So there was one for a while, I think it was called Raging Bull. That ended up being just a big scam. I think it turned out all the money they said they were making, they were losing millions in their own personal portfolios because they just were terrible at what they did. They were just terrible. I do have a video on my site called the Coin Toss Con, which really sort of describes to you the type of websites you want to avoid altogether. For this one that you mentioned, if they are educating you, well, there's a cost to education. So I don't know that I'm not sure that I can use the same words you did unless I actually knew the person. But yeah, so. Could you share your thoughts on how to structure days and weeks to be productive? I've noticed that I could be very productive one day and unproductive the other. Yeah, so same here. There are days where I know I just don't have it, where I think, okay, I'm going to work on this today and I'll start, and within 10 minutes, I know I don't have it. On days like that, I stop. The moment I recognize I don't have it, I stop, because I'm going to do crappy work. I'm not going to do very good work at all, and I just don't have it. Same with doing videos. Sometimes I don't have the voice. I'll start narrating and no, I don't want to say that, or I'll trip over some words and no, I didn't mean to say that. And I'll take 2 or 3 takes. And if I don't have it, I stop. It's just not my day. I'll go on to something else. I find that I do the best when I sleep well. So if I have a terrible night's sleep, I know the next day I'm going to be unproductive. That is the day where I'll do more physical stuff. Okay, well, I got to clean this. I got to fix that. I wanted to move that stuff out of the garage anyway. So I know if I haven't got it here, at least I can do some other work. And then I just have to focus on getting a good night's sleep the next night. And I find that if I do cardio before, like an hour before I go to sleep, like for a good hour, get on the treadmill, and the TV's right in front of me on the treadmill. I only watch TV if I'm on the treadmill. So I have Crave TV, I have Apple TV, but my rule is I will not sit and watch TV. I must be on the treadmill or the elliptical or the bike to watch TV. Simple as that. Otherwise, I can't. So it's kind of like, I want to watch that show. Well, you know what you got to do. I find that if I do that before I go to sleep, I have great sleeps. Can't always get that in. The day doesn't always work out that way. But I get that. If the day is not working for you, it is going to be wasted time. There's no point in putting 5 hours of unproductive time in. Let it go. You're probably not going to get much done anyways, and you risk learning something wrong. What is the optimal preparation time for someone from L1? I'd say no less than 6 months, but no more than 9 months. I think somewhere in the 9 to 6 month to start is the right range. Start early. Start at 9 months. Do a section, and if the section flows, if you say, "Oh, this is not bad," okay, well then you got maybe a month or two before you really have to start. But if you start and you say, "Okay, this is all new language to me. These are new concepts, new ideas," well, thank God you got 9 months, right? Think about it that way. At least sample it. Start early and sample it. And if you can handle it, then fine. If you can't, then thank God you started early, right? When I was an undergrad and we had to do cases for an assignment, I read the case as early as I possibly could. But no, I didn't care to make any notes. I wasn't trying to get anything done. I just read it. And as I'm reading it, you can sort of figure some things out as you're reading it. And if I said, "Okay, I get the idea," then I'd let it go. I'd wait 3, 4 days before the assignment was due, saying, "Oh, I got this." But if I read it and I said, "I have no idea what the hell this is all about," and it's got 59 pages of financial exhibits, come on. At that point, it's like, well, thank God I started early, right? Let's go to the bottom here and see what we got. Hot girls are the best. Still there. Any thoughts about the gamification of investing? Yeah, I think I don't know what my thoughts on that are. On the one hand, I think it's irresponsible. This is not a game. It's not a game, for God's sake. But on the other hand, I do believe in capitalism and the free market, and I do think that products survive on their own merit. That if you are a broker, your money comes in your clients having money and trading. That if you're going to find a way to part them from their money faster, you're going to be out of business a lot faster. So part of me thinks it's irresponsible. The other part thinks, hey, it's a free market economy. If that's your thing, and people are signing up for it, well, then that's fine. Not for me, but I'm certainly not going to advocate that you shouldn't have it. If you want it, then you have it. It's not fraudulent. It's I think careless. I think it's irresponsible, but there is no law against being careless and irresponsible. So as long as you're not breaking the law, I don't really care. One thing I think it can do, one benefit I think it can have is most retail traders blow up in the first 6 months to a year. Most of them blow up anyways, like 90% of them will blow up. If it helps them blow up faster, even better, because then that will highlight to them the absolute necessity of treating this like a business and not a game. That they better learn, otherwise they're going to keep blowing up. I think the best thing that can happen to most retail traders is they lose money quickly out of the gates, so that they don't lose more later on. This way here, it highlights to them that they do need to learn something. It's like it's kind of like any business you enter. I mean, if you enter the nightclub business or the restaurant business or the construction business, and if you've never had any experience building a house, and you say, "You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start a business building houses." Come on, you'd never do that, and you'd never be successful at that, and you'd get sued the moment you tried to even build anything because you don't know what the hell you're doing. But yet, for some reason, we think that we can step into the markets and suddenly start buying and selling stuff, and that it's just going to be that easy, and we've got it all figured out, and there's confetti being tossed whenever I buy. Hey, here we go. And I think it's irresponsible. But would those people have lost their money anyways if there wasn't confetti? Probably. Because most retail traders, when they start, outsource their thinking. They outsource their thinking to the chat boards. They outsource it to stock twits or Wall Street bets. They outsource their thinking to Kramer, and they listen to what other people say and they do it without knowing what they're buying, without knowing why they're buying it or what it's for or anything about the company. They were destined to lose money anyway, so why not have fireworks and confetti going on while you're losing money? So there, I think that's a good idea. I mean, a good answer. Okay, where was I here? All comes down to a get rich quick. Get rich quick. Yeah, if somebody's selling you get rich quick, they're the ones getting rich quick off of you. You're the trade. You're the trade. Can someone get rich quick? Sure. Sure. The laws of probability say that if you put enough people in a room, somebody will flip a coin 20 times and get heads 20 times in a row. That's the law of large numbers. So will somebody out there become really rich very quickly, very easily? Yeah, sure. But behind that one person in that distribution, there are another 10 million people who probably lost everything for that 1 million that just got lucky at that time. Feel like Ontario and Canada are on an unsustainable fiscal path. Ever think of leaving? 53% tax rate. If they go higher, yeah, I would leave in a heartbeat. Calgary, I'd save 5% on my taxes, top end, by moving to Calgary, and I could probably get 3 times as much house for the same price that I could sell my house here in Calgary. And there are ski hills, right? I mean, what's not to like? So there's snow. Well, we got snow here. Look outside. I don't know if anyone's in the Buffalo, Niagara, Toronto, Oakville, Hamilton area. We got snow. Buffalo got like 4 or 5 feet. I went out this morning, shoveled out a foot of snow, and there's another good 8 inches. And here's the thing. Here's the thing that really upsets me about this is I ordered a hot tub in the summer, supposed to be in at the end of August. Then it was the end of September. Then finally, we had to get a crane to crane it over the top of the house because it's this big 10-person hot tub. Got put in place, filled it, put the chemicals in yesterday because you got to space them out, put the top on, waited for it to get to 104, woke up the next day. It's buried under 1.5 feet of snow now. The whole thing, and it's way on the... I have to dig it out, and now there's another 8 inches on it. It's under 2 feet of snow. The very day that I got it all ready, all the chemicals were set. I was ready to go, got all my towels, and boom. No, says Mother Nature. You think you're going in that? No. So now it's buried under a pile of snow. Unless I go dig it out, I'm not going in it. So thank you very much. All right. Have you ever thought of applying financial knowledge to sports betting? Not really, no. They add geopolitics to the curriculum. What's the rationale? Okay, so let me talk about this geopolitics reading on level 1. I was looking forward to it. I thought this is fabulous because if you're looking for the effect on currencies and commodities, it's geopolitics. If you are aware of geopolitics and you are aware of what natural resources come out of what countries, as soon as there's an issue that flares up, you would know exactly what resource you want exposure to. Excellent. This reading had none of that. Didn't mention a single asset class whatsoever. It simply talked about the level of cooperativeness between countries in terms of trade. Well, big freaking deal. That's not where the excitement of geopolitics lies. Not one bit. Missed the mark entirely. A complete and absolute letdown. Absolute letdown. If you want to have a good idea of geopolitics and the effect on asset classes, Peter Zeihan. However, that guy tends to take his analysis to some pretty extreme conclusions. I ignore his conclusions, but I am interested in his data and his analysis. As far as his data on country demographics goes, it's tight. It's good. And some of his predictions about what is potentially going to happen to some of these countries with the way their demographics sit have already played out. So I think you can get a lot more from Peter Zeihan on geopolitics than you can from the reading in CFA. Let's see. Will there be a video coming up in APP? In APP series under bottom-up approach on how to shortlist best stocks from a leading sector. I did watch agency video, but no idea how you select the agency from other stocks. So I selected agency because it is sort of a flagship company in the mortgage REITs. So that if we can understand agency, we can understand all the smaller ones. And for the home builders, I'm going to do DHI because DHI builds houses across the entire spectrum, not just high end or low end, but the entire spectrum. But it also builds houses for inventory of which it rents those houses out. So it has a $2 billion, basically a $2 billion residential REIT sitting on its balance sheet. And then it does it for entire communities. And then when it leases out that community, it then sells it off as a bulk sale to other REITs. So if we can understand DHI, you can understand every home builder. But if we start with, let's say, Pulte Homes, then you may only understand the high-end home builder without understanding the whole spectrum. So I try to find exemplars in a particular industry that if we can understand this company, we can understand pretty much almost every other company in that industry. In time, I will do more. So agency is a big one. Annaly Capital is another big mortgage REIT. So it would be worth looking at Annaly Capital once we understand agency. Let's throw another mortgage REIT in there and let's see how they compare. Let's see how they're different. Let's see what we can learn from that. So it's it is I think every industry has at least one company that is an exemplar in that particular industry that is sort of the big one in that industry. That if we can understand the big one, the smaller ones are easy to understand as well. So and it made sense to do it because it is, I think the mortgage REITs it's about time to start looking at them. They've been hugely beaten up. And I think, well, when I did it, at least when I thought about it, I thought, I think now's the time to start looking at these companies, which, if you tell someone you're looking at mortgage REITs, they'd say, now, why? Well, you have to understand how they make their money. Let's see. With all the job opportunities available, is there a rule of thumb on how many times you should switch jobs in the financial services industry? Is it bad in the long term if you switch jobs too much? Yeah, I think so. I think if I look at your resume and I see that you've got 12 different jobs for 4 or 5 months at a time, they better all be internships, but if you're just job hopping, you'll do the same thing to me. I want to see that there is some length of tenure. And of course, you are going to switch jobs in this industry. You are, because you're going to get to a certain point where another company is going to think you're worth more than the company that you're with, and you will switch. But if you're switching every 4 or 5 months, it's kind of like, if you get your girlfriend because she cheated on her then boyfriend to be with you, don't be surprised when she does it to you. So if I see you job hopping every 3 or 4 months, I should not be surprised that you're just going to do the same thing to me, in which case I'm going to be right back here looking for another person. So what do I want you for, right? So yeah, I would be careful about that. Will there be a video coming up? Every country risk premium are affected by geopolitics. Every country's risk premium? Yeah, I would say to some degree. You get an increase in risk premiums in some other countries. There are some countries whose risk premiums lower as a result of that. Most notably, places like Switzerland and the US. Some are unaffected. For example, Canada is pretty much unaffected only because there's not very much trade that we have with Ukraine. And there's not even our energy really didn't come from there, even though we do pay the price. But it doesn't make our country riskier. But yeah, I would say there is a contagion effect in geopolitics to risk premiums, some being pushed up, some being pushed down as a result. Yeah. Are your CFA 2023 videos recent? Well, they're 2023. How I do this is, let's say that there is a reading on, I don't know, what's a good one here? Let's say Introduction to Fixed Income, the first reading for fixed income. That changed two years ago, I think. So you change it. But then the year after, it did not change. Well, then why would I do a whole video all over again for something that didn't change? So from year to year, some readings completely change. Sometimes only a learning objective changes, and sometimes a major section changes. So we get something called a change document, where for every reading, we have a Word document that we can scan through, and it shows us in red where all the changes are. Some changes are cosmetic, where a name is being changed, or an example, the exhibit, instead of having 2015, 2016, 2017, has 2019, 20, and 21, but all the numbers are exactly the same. Under a situation like that, I probably wouldn't make any changes just because of something cosmetic. But if it's a fundamental change, whether it be in the learning objective, whether something was added or subtracted, yeah, sometimes you have a 2-hour video where 20 minutes of it has to change. So I do my videos learning objective by learning objective. So when a learning objective changes, maybe the first 3 and the last 3 learning objectives are the same. You just have to change some part in the middle. So they are all updated to 2023. Is Germany good for CFA? I don't know. If there's a German on here, hopefully they can answer that. If CFA is sort of a big thing in Germany. Let's see. I'm a U.S. CPA who wants to get for the CPA to get into equity research, but I hear that equity research is a dying field. Really? Do you agree that it's dying? No, I don't agree that it's dying at all. I think everything has a season, and I think sometimes we may try to project this season into the next season. So let me see if I can give you a good explanation for that. Since the GFC, since 2007, 2008, you've had so much financial engineering of yield curves from central banks all over the world that basically squeezed almost all return out of bonds. So you going into the 10-year to get what, 1.27, 1.3%. In some countries, like Japan, 0.25% is rather meaningless. So money went into equities. So there wasn't a lot of thinking to do. I mean, there just wasn't a lot of thinking. You simply just bought an ETF that tracked the market. And if we were in a confirmed bull market, use leverage. And you'll do quite well. But what happens when the Fed is no longer engineering a yield curve? What happens when a lot of the tenors on the yield curve are fully market derived? Well, suddenly the price of risk is now being priced as risk. So it's not just a simple answer as buy an ETF that tracks the market. Well, now you got to be a good stock picker. From 2010 to 2020, really, you didn't even have to be a stock picker. Just buy the market and you did well. But I think going forward, the next 5, 6, 7 years probably is going to be the age, the decade of stock picking. So that at the end of this period, it would probably be, quant is dead. We need equity analysts. We need active traders. Passive is gone. Whereas for the last decade, passive was king because active failed. Well, active failed when you have a highly engineered market in which the price of risk is underpriced all the time. And if it's underpriced, what's the point of using those price points of risk to evaluate the price of an equity when I know that this is not the price of risk? What's the point? Once the price of risk returns, well, suddenly it becomes an active game all over again. And if we're really looking at single digit returns to the index for the next 6, 7, 8 years, anybody who can provide 200 basis points of alpha on that is going to be in huge demand. So I think the last decade may have made a good argument for passive over active. And if you're passive, what do you need all of this equity analysis for? But what if the next decade is not like the last decade? Suddenly passive will be kind of pathetic return. If you're looking at 7-8% return, the only way you're going to get a better return is private assets or very active hedge funds. So I think that active management will be a lot better going forward. And if you can move away from benchmarking, let's have a benchmark of, let's say, the 5-year plus 400 basis points. There you go. There's your benchmark. But this idea of your benchmark is the S&P 500, well, you may as well just buy an index at that point. If you're going to benchmark me to one thing and say that's my investment universe, it would be better for me to tell investors, go ahead and buy an ETF, because that's brutally hard to do. You want 400 or 500 basis points more than the S&P, you have to unshackle me. You can't handcuff me to an index, which means that there is no real benchmark for me. It has to be some absolute return like the 5-year plus 400 basis points. But I think going forward, I think you'll see a lot more money going into private assets like hedge funds. Is CFA level 1 qualified helps in getting into missions and top B schools like Harvard? Probably not. Probably not. Any non-finance investments related books you would recommend? Non-finance books I would recommend. What have I got here? I always find a good book to read, and since it's beyond its copy right now, the PDF is freely available online, is Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think that is a must read for any human being that's going to interact with any other human being. How to Win Friends and Influence People is a woke book way before woke was woke. If you want to go to the true meaning of wokeness, inclusiveness, and compassion, that's the book, not this bullshit nonsense of calling people out because of their skin pigmentation or their gender. But that book, that will make you a good person. You want to be a good person? Read that book. Stay away from these stupid, simple-minded wokists. I think that's it, eh? Thoughts on the combination on computer science undergrad with CFA? If you feel the pull towards finance, absolutely. But a computer science undergrad is going to be overkill. I mean, you really don't need a lot of the stuff that the undergrad is going to teach you in computer science, especially when you start getting into data structures and things like that. You probably don't really need that in finance. I would say you probably would do a lot better with having a combined stats and finance major with a computer science minor, where you only have to take 6 courses in computer science, and they're mostly the coding courses. So I think that would be better. But in computer science, you do have to take the logic courses. You're taking integrated circuits. I don't know that integrated circuits is going to help you very much with finance. Although I guess it's interesting if you like that kind of stuff, the flips and the flops and all that. Thoughts on the Canadian cannabis industry? I don't know. I don't smoke any of that stuff. I don't do any of that stuff. I don't follow any of that stuff. So I'm not even sure if how it's doing. Whether the I don't know. I just defer my how do I manage forgetting some of the curriculum content? Review. I just defer my November window? Should I move to May or August? Well, it depends on why you're deferring. Are you deferring because you're not prepared? Then move to May. Are you deferring because you just don't have it in you? You're not feeling it right now? Then you probably want to give yourself a couple of months to think about your motivation. Maybe then take August. And during that period of time, you know, get a life plan. Think about why it is that you're doing what you do. So, why are you deferring answers the question. Thoughts on Aswath, the Meldrum's valuation course of any? Well, I don't know that you're going to get better than that guy. He is considered, the father of, I wouldn't say the father, but let's call him the godfather now, the king of that particular hill of beans. So I would probably defer to him on that in a heartbeat. He comes heavy in the sense that he comes with a lot of credibility, He's earned his credibility. He's a person of merit, and he's a thoughtful thinker. I've listened to some of his videos. I like his thoughts. I like his thinking. He's very measured. He's an academic, so he doesn't say things that are undefensible. No, I would recommend him in a heartbeat. Without any hesitation. Any thoughts on level 122 results? Well, they're coming back up, I think. I think if you make level 1 more difficult, you will weed out those who really don't want it early in the process so that they save themselves time and energy. Why find out at level 2 that you don't like it, right? You may as well find out at level 1. And if you do that well at level 1, you can raise the pass rates for level 2 and 3 because only those who really are going to make it will get through. What's your thoughts on value investment approach developed by Benjamin Graham? Well, I mean, it's a valid approach if you're into value investing. But it is just one approach to investing. I think if you look at value investing, you're looking for a very specific thing. That I think if you opened yourself up to different styles of investing, you have different opportunities in different markets. What happens when value is out of style? Do you continue value investing if it's out of style? There is a time to lean into growth and to lean in heavy. So I don't know that I would, yes, I think if you're going to, if you're going to follow that style, sure. But I would not follow that style to the exclusion of any other strategy that you could follow. Could pass CFA level 2 help to enter IB being graduate from non-top university? Investment banking is, it's like the platinum club of any club, right? It's a club. So probably, I don't want to say no, but level 2, entering IB from a non-top university, I don't know that would make any difference because it's really about the pathway that you took and the people that you know. Let's see, can you help us in preparation of level 1? You just go to my website, markmeldrum.com. I have plenty of resources there. What would your advice be to someone who liked the curriculum but flunked the level 1 twice? Should they take another chance? That requires me asking you a hell of a lot more questions about why do you want to do this? What is your motivation for doing this? If it's just that you like the curriculum, you don't actually need the 3 letters. You can learn this stuff on your own. Why are you doing it? Your why will tell me everything. But just to say, yeah, get back up there, go ahead. Well, it might not be for you. It might not be in line with what it is that you're trying to get done. How do you generally recommend handling family or friends asking for investment advice as a favor? Well, that's a good question. because I do get asked that. Um, I used to always have a rule is never do business with friends and family, no matter what you're doing. Even if you're selling lawnmowers and your cousin wants to buy a lawnmower, tell them where the competition is, because usually friends and family implies a lifetime warranty. Always that they'll always remind you of that thing you sold them. That if you give them advice and it doesn't work out, they'll always remind you of that thing that you suggested to them. That investment advice is not one stock. Investment advice is a constellation of stocks. It is a portfolio approach. So when they ask you for advice, you can say, look, I can give you a name or two, but that's not advice. One stock is not advice. One stock is dangerous, but 5 stocks is advice. 8 stocks are even better. So the best advice I can give you is buy an ETF. If you are interested in having access to the market, the least riskiest way to have access to the market is to buy an ETF, and every 3 months buy a little more. And you just keep doing that, and by the time you retire, you're going to thank me. That is the best advice that I can give you. Rather than trying to manage each position, going through earnings, idiosyncratic risk events, there's way too much, and you're going to have concentrated positions. The best advice is a portfolio approach, and the best portfolio is buy the SPY with 60% of your money, buy the TLT with another 40% of your money. Anyways, I'm going to have to get going here soon because my wall contractor just pulled up. I'm having a wall built around my hot tub, which is under 2 feet of snow. So I'm going to have to talk to him here, but I see that he just pulled up and he's going to ring the doorbell soon. So let's call it a night. That's 3 hours and 15 minutes. And maybe we'll do another one of these, in a couple of months. So I will log off in about 15 seconds here. 3 hours and 16 minutes. That was a long one. This video will be up probably in the next couple of hours. So if you missed the first part, you can then review whatever parts of the video you want. Maybe in a couple of weeks, I'll do another one that is more general, not about CFA in general, but just about, because there were some other questions that dealt on the economy and social issues. Maybe I'll do another one at that time. In the meantime, the doorbell is going to ring. All right. Ciao, guys.